Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are starting early, as you've been made aware, and I apologize for the inconvenience that has caused. We're trying to make sure that necessary business that we have gets accomplished so that we can get started with our council meeting at 7 o'clock. So we're going to get underway, call it at 5:31, and we do have a quorum, barely, but we do. So in the interest of those of the council members that are not able to make it here at 5:30, and looking at what we have on the agenda, for our briefings, I think it's best that we go ahead and reverse the order to do the conference center first, and then do the logo second. Because the individuals that are not present have a deep interest in the logo itself, as seen from our last meeting that we had when we were doing that. So with that, we'll go ahead and get underway. Mr. City Manager, discuss the agenda item, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight on your consent agenda are the minutes for the October 29th through 31st council special meeting of the council retreat and the November 20th regular meeting. Item 5A is SUP for to consider special use permit for the Village Tech School on West Danielsdale Road. This was the item that was on the last council meeting. Conducted the public hearing and closed the public hearing, and then tabled the item after some discussion by council. The ordinance has been updated to add in additional conditions for the driveway, drainage, and ingress egress.
Did the issue of the number of portable buildings get resolved?
Yes, we need to update that to 3 instead of 2.
Is it not showing 4 on the plat?
It's 3 for the new
Okay.
ones.
So if council chooses to pass the ordinance or to make a motion to approve the ordinance, then please amend that particular item, which is condition number 8, from 2 additional portable buildings to 3 additional portable buildings.
And about the flooding, what do we say about the flooding? What happened on the flooding piece? Was that us or was that?
Well, all drainage, the developer, the property owner has a requirement to maintain all flow on their property, drainage that they cause. So condition 5 is that drainage plans are submitted by a licensed engineer and reviewed by the city engineer per our ordinances. Our stormwater engineer, John Bunner, is here to probably answer that question better.
That would be my answer as
Oh,
well.
okay.
That stipulation is in there.
All right, thank you.
And I believe that what they had said before too was that this phase includes additional drainage work to address drainage problems.
It does.
So those plans are being designed right now?
Correct.
Is this a super majority when we do this, or is this regular?
Still requires a supermajority because the opposition has not been withdrawn. Is that true?
Correct,
Cassidy?
yes.
I would also like to mention real quickly that, as you see, Bob is not here tonight. Julie is filling in for Bob from our law firm. So that's who that is sitting at the end and answering the legal questions is our city attorney.
Have we talked with the opposition since, the opposition and the applicant talked since these revised plans?
I'm not aware if they spoke. I believe there was some conversation after the public hearing, but I don't know that they've made any movement to withdraw the petition.
All right, thank you.
I still, on the portable buildings, the plat that's given to us, you got number 13, number 18, number 19, number 20 that say that the new I just want to make sure that the plat matches
I'm reading that 13 is existing, but 18, 19, and 20 are the new ones.
I only see 3 labeled new as well,
the, okay.
18, 19, and 20.
Yeah.
I mean, this one might be a little bit bigger.
No,
Oh, okay.
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 Item 5B is a resolution to accept and approve a sign control board grant for sign variance for the Hampton Inn and Suites. There are 2 variances that are requested. This was recommended for approval by the sign control board. One of the signs exceeds the allowable sign area, which is the maximum based on the length of the building, which is a maximum of 342 square feet, and they are requesting a 543 square foot sign. And then the other variance that's requested is on the height of the wall signage, which is limited to 4 feet, and they're requesting a variance on the west end to allow a 9 foot 2 inch high sign, and on the north face to be 6 feet 0 inches. And again, there are elevations in your packet that show the sign, the elevations, and this was recommended for approval by the sign control board.
We also just included with your handout there some photos of an actual building where, so you can sort of get an idea of like a real, what it would look like on a real building on the last. 8.5 by 11 is at the very end of your handout.
Item 5C is a resolution approving a 12-month agreement between the City of Duncanville and Duncanville Chamber of Commerce on a hotel occupancy grant for $17,760 for FY 18 and 19 to serve as the Duncanville Visitor Center. This item was on your agenda last meeting. It was pulled from the agenda. The Chamber of Commerce has provided some additional information, and that is in your packet. Should want to also mention that Steve Martin had planned to be here this evening. He had a medical appointment and then was sent for a follow-up test, and so he's hoping to be here tonight, but he's not sure when he's going to get to.
Okay, those are the agenda items, so we'll move into presentations, and we'll start with the Duncanville Conference Center Business Incubator Space.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. Just kind of a recap. During the budget meeting of 2017, the City Council had directed staff to look at the possibility or the options of potentially building a conference center here in Duncanville. They were tasked with 2 different items. The first was possibly identify a location, and the second was to conduct a study to see if it would be financially feasible for the city to build one. In addition, we were also supposed to look at possible funding options as well. So after that meeting, then we visited with a number of conference centers across the Metroplex and the cities associated with them to research who had done their initial economic impact study, and HVS, the name HVS kept reoccurring as one of the leading professionals in the business that do these type of studies. So with that, we engaged HVS, and at this time I have Catherine Surratt with me, and she will be here this evening to provide you a presentation and demonstrate the findings that they found during their feasibility study. So with that.
So just very quickly, who is HBS? So we are a global hospitality consulting firm. We have about 40 offices in North America, 50 offices worldwide. That comes to over 200 consultants working in the industry. The Chicago office has a staff dedicated to convention, sports, and entertainment facilities, which includes me. I have been at this for about 25 years consulting in this industry. Prior to that, I worked at the Spectrum Arena in Philadelphia. So just briefly, our project scope, we went through several steps to get to our final results. You'll see we did a market assessment, we had interviews, we assessed some comparable and competitive facilities. We went into our program recommendations, demand forecasts, down in financial feasibility, we looked at some financial projections, and also the economic and fiscal impacts of the facility. So jumping ahead to the comparable facilities, we looked at two basic groups. The first group is the group within the Dallas Metroplex. So you'll see we've got the largest with the Plano Event Center and the smallest in Midlothian. They all have, we avoided the large convention centers, Dallas Convention Center, and the ones in the larger areas. But as you'll see, they all have a combination of meeting and ballroom space. A lot of them are clustered around that, around 20,000 square feet or less. The second group that we looked at were other venues in Texas that are in smaller markets, smaller cities. Maybe they're outside of a major metropolitan area like Duncanville, or within a major metropolitan area outside of a large city. You'll see some of these do start bringing in some exhibit space, which is the more bare bones, raw, less finished space that would be in New Braunfels and the new Midland Convention Center, which is expected to open, I believe it's in 2020. That facility will open. But these tend to be a little bit larger, and then there's some smaller facilities in Rosenberg and Bastrop. So all ranges also have a lot of meeting and ballroom spaces. We looked through at various characteristics of these comparable cities. I just put one slide up here that shows the citywide hotel supply. Duncanville, this includes the two new hotels, the one La Quinta that just opened in the Hampton that is expected to open shortly. Duncanville has 677 hotel rooms within its city limits. It's a little bit on the small side, especially when you compare to other venues in Texas outside of the Dallas Metroplex. And this will impact, having a hotel room, nearby hotel rooms is a very important feature for events, conferences, and conventions that attract a significant amount of lodgers. So that will limit the attractiveness of the facility as it's compared to some of the other ones that we would compete against. So our building program recommendations, you'll see here we have recommended multi-purpose ballroom space at 8,500 square feet and meeting room space of around 3,500 square feet. So with this, we think that this facility would be able to host events that current facilities within the city limits are not able to accommodate. Right now, you have a lot of events happening at the recreation center. You've got them at the senior center, the field house, and other auditoriums in the city. And some of those are just not set up for the types of events that would typically be hosted in a conference center. Plus, they have other activities that are going on, and sometimes they're just not available because their primary purpose is for other reasons. So there's a lot of events that cannot be accommodated, and that was verified in talking to the park district that books these venues, that they do have a fairly long list of events that they've turned away. They've got a fairly long list of events that are on waiting lists because of unavailability of space. This size venue would also allow Duncanville to begin to participate in these conferences that rotate throughout the Dallas Metroplex. They're typically association-based, state associations, and their regional branches have many events, whether they're conferences, training sessions, banquets. There's all sorts of events that these groups have. And then they do tend to want to move throughout the area so that they can hit their constituents in various parts of the state and throughout the metro area. And would also serve, better serve customers who are hosting in Duncanville that have found that their events are getting a little bit constrained by the size of the facilities. So this would preclude some of those events from moving outside of the market and moving to other venues or having to cancel their event altogether because they can't fit. We also looked at a business incubator, which could be housed within the same footprint of the conference center. So business incubators take a variety of forms. And there are several throughout the Dallas area. There are several affiliated with colleges and universities. Some of them are operated by nonprofits or other groups. There's some of them are industry focused, for instance, technology or biotechnology, medicine, the arts. The list can go on. Agriculture. So they do have an industry focus. Some of them, and then some of them are established by a city's economic development department and or a chamber of commerce, and run that way. And they serve a variety of purposes. I mean, they not only provide the business space for the businesses to come in and house their staff, but they also provide technological support, coaching and mentoring. They have training seminars, and then they have business type functions, luncheons, happy hours, get-togethers, and things like that, business fairs that would support these businesses. So this would be the program that we considered. Some suites would have an exterior door for those businesses that would have a more client type business where people would come to see them. Others would be more office space, office cubicles. We also recommend around 10,000 square feet of light manufacturing or warehouse space that these businesses could use for creating or storing their items. So around 20,000 square feet in total. So in total, between the function space of the conference center, the incubator space, and adding some support space for pre-function, circulation, kitchen, and all of that, we get to a gross building floor area of around 55,000 square feet. So event demand, what events would come to this type of venue? So there's several different types of events that can come in. That first line, conference centers or conferences, would be those rotating events that would come. They'd be more heavily requiring lodging. So you'll see that occupied room nights, that last column there is fairly high, indicating that there would be several people that require lodging. Meetings are typically 1 or 2 day events that are typically smaller than a conference that also runs several days. And have, they don't really have, a conference is going to have some banquet requirements and kind of a more full service type event. I'm sure you've all attended those. Where a meeting is more of a one-off meeting or maybe a day of meetings with a smaller attendance. The incubator events, the large would be the business fairs. Maybe once a month there might be a business fair or some sort of happy hour or larger event that's going to attract a large number of people throughout the community. Smaller events would be the seminars, classes, and those types of things that would take place maybe a couple times a week. You would have a smaller seminar training session and other support for the incubator businesses. Banquets and social would be weddings, but it would also be a lot of banquets, sports banquets, luncheons, civic luncheons, and those types of things. So we're very heavy on those. Consumer shows are art fairs, business fairs, food shows, a Christmas show, things like that, that would attract the general public to the facility, and you would probably have exhibits set up within that multi-purpose space. Sports and competitions don't really mean sports, because we know that the field house handles most of your sporting needs. But in this category, we also include things like card tournaments, robotics tournaments, science Olympiad, esports, which is growing now. Those types of things that would be perfect for this size venue. So those are lumped in there. And those also generate a small amount of lodging demand. Assemblies are primarily graduations and church services. We learned that there is a fairly long waiting list for the church services in your area. So this would free up some of that and allow them to come in and have a space for their worship. Other events include more civic-oriented events like blood drives, health screenings, maybe a political rally, or support for if you have a bike race or a marathon would be the registration, packet pickup, and those types of things. They're more civic-oriented and supporting other events within the community. So with that, we developed the financials for the conference center itself. I won't go through all of these, but we went through rents that are charged. We did a fairly significant analysis of the different rents that are charged throughout Texas on a square foot basis. That GSFD is gross square foot days. And so we based our projections on a mid-range of those, what we found mid-range throughout Texas and throughout the Metroplex. Food and beverage and event services. Event services are things like audiovisual setup, cleaning, microphones, and all of those types of things that go into a conference. And we base those on industry averages. As you see, it's different for the type of event because different events are willing to pay different prices. Things like banquets obviously have a higher food per capita spending. Conferences, because they're multi-day and they also have a lot of food and beverage needs, has the highest amount of food spending. But a meeting or a consumer show, those are might be more of a concessions type thing, or maybe just a coffee break or something like that. So those are lower. For the expenses, we base these on industry standards. Salaries and benefits is based on a 4-person staff, which is rather lean, but definitely doable in this industry. Things like part-time food staff or event service staff, those are included, not in the salaries and benefits, those are included in the food and beverage costs and event services costs, which are based on those 2 revenue line items. We also included a capital maintenance reserve of 3% of total revenue, which is fairly standard in the industry, so that you would have a reserve to make some repairs as needed.
This is still stabilized out to 2024?
These values are in 2018 dollars.
2018.
Yeah, so we base it on a current year dollar, and then you'll see in this next slide, this is where we inflate it and then stabilize it at 2024. We say, I believe we had it opening in 2021, take 3 years to stabilize 2024. So you'll see the net income is negative, which is very common in this industry. These standalone venues, by standalone we mean they're not attached to a hotel. They don't have lodging that's generating other revenue for them. So most of them do operate at a loss and require some sort of subsidy. You'll see, we'll come to it in a bit, we have some examples of other facilities that are also operating at a loss. So these tend to be loss leaders within a community. They're a community asset in that they provide space for the community to come and gather, and they also generate economic impact, which we'll get into, due to the visitation, the people spending in hotels, in restaurants, and in your retail shops. So that tends to be where people find the value in these facilities, is in this economic impact, and also the overall qualitative impacts, quality of life, and having a venue like this in your community can help bring businesses, etc. It makes it a fuller community.
What's the life of the other information? If this is the financial life of 2024, the other information precede this, is there a timeline on that as well?
Well, these numbers are all based on current year dollars, just to get our model going. And then when we apply it to get these, the final numbers after we sum up everything for each event, then we inflated it, and this is where you are in an inflated year.
So outside of the numbers, the information, in 2024, would you have to do a fresh survey, or would it be the same information, you think?
You mean for the demand projections?
Yes.
Yeah, so so for demand, this demand is where it is stabilized in 2024. So we have, if you looked at our projections through, say, starting in 2021, we might have 5 conferences and maybe 20 large meetings and 60, I don't know what the numbers are, but, and then we would gradually move them up till we got to this point where it's stabilized. Now, when we say stabilized, obviously we don't have a magic ball and know exactly, but this is where we think, I mean, obviously some events, some years are gonna be good, some years are gonna be not so good, but this is where we think the average will be around there.
Does it ever break even, or does it remain a loss leader for its life?
Our feeling is that it will remain a loss leader for its life. Depending on, I mean, there are certain operational things that can happen, but because it doesn't have, competing with hotels is difficult in this field, because the hotels are giving their space away, because they're more interested in putting heads in beds. And they're willing to say, you know, if you have a lot of people staying in our hotel, we're not going to charge you that much for your rent, or we'll give you a discount on the food, or whatever it is. So they're fighting hard, and it's very difficult for a standalone facility to compete against that. So you're definitely competing on price, and that's just, that's the industry.
Just like the city competes with our senior center, our library, they're all net loss. I mean, we never make any money on those.
Right. So most communities feel that these are community assets, just like a library or anything else. Exactly. So now we'll get into something more. So the business incubator operations also. So just very quickly, this is where at full occupancy we estimated some below market rents for the various suites, private offices, cubicles, and the manufacturing. This is at full occupancy, would generate $166,000 a year. Again, these numbers are in 2018 dollars, which we will inflate later. We estimated membership and program fees based on fees that would be charged for these events. Members would get in free. So around $48,000 in fees for the members. Not necessarily the people that are housed there, but also you would have members that would be outside of that would want to join in for the events and the seminars and all of that. So where we come out on this is, again in inflated dollars, is in order to approximately break even, you'll see in that sponsorships and grants line item, it's around $20,000 would be necessary through fundraising or other types of naming rights, or there's various things that you can do with businesses that would be willing to support something like this. So around $20,000 in order to break even on the incubator. So I will quickly go through the economic impacts, which I'm sure many of you have seen before, but so we estimate a spending that's going to be associated with visitors coming into the market, and also the revenue generated by the incubator and by the conference center. We put that into an in-plan model, which is an input-output model that's specific for Duncanville. And then that gives us the indirect and induced impacts, which a lot of people call that multiplier effect. So instead of just saying, oh, it's going to be 1.5 times your direct spending, this model actually looks at your economy and spits out the indirect and induced spending that would occur based on the net direct spending that we put into it. So the results of that are a $4.2 million, this is annual, again in 2018 dollars, which would total $5.5 million annually in spending impacts within the city of Duncanville. And so this is people coming from outside Duncanville and spending their money within your community. Based on your tax rates, your sales tax and your hotel tax, we calculated around $125,000 in tax revenue, that fiscal impact number, $125,900, and 38 jobs. So over the 25-year life of the facility, that would be a net present value of around $74 million. That's the spending impact. The $5.5 million would be $74 million over 25 years. The typical life of a facility like this. We also looked at the yearly impacts through stabilized demand to show how construction would what that would look like. So based on information that Jessica gave us, we had an $18.8 million development budget over a 2-year construction period. And so we split that up, so we have a little over $10 million in total spending, that's with the indirect and induced each year during construction. Following construction, when you get into operation, you go from just under $4 million to that $5.5 million spending in your stabilized year. And of course, that would go up with inflation as the years go on.
And I'd just like to note that how we arrived at the 18.8 million was, if you noted in my staff report, we also engaged Ron Hobbs Architects. And they evaluated a couple different sites, and also they evaluated the criteria that HVS had recommended in terms of the building size and so forth. And that's how the 18.8 was derived.
So I know I'm over my time, but just real quickly, I wanted to show you a couple of, so New Braunfels Convention Center is a good comparable. It's a renovated facility, so it's a lot older than its 2007 renovation suggests, but it is a similar size, and it has a $180,000 operating loss. And the debt service for its renovation is supported by the city's hotel motel tax. Midlothian, again, of similar size, opened in 2002, has a $182,000 loss. Again, debt service is supported by their sales tax revenue instead of their hotel tax. And then the Rosenberg Civic Center opened 2001, a little smaller at 9,300 square feet, has a loss of $265,000 a year. That's funded directly by a 7% hotel motel tax. The debt service for the construction is supported by a half-cent sales tax that goes to the Rosenberg Development Corporation. That was set up to fund various projects. This is one of them. And then in Waxahachie, that is a little bit larger facility supported by a half-cent sales tax. I couldn't get any information on its operating revenues, but if its operating budget is $1.5 million, I can tell you it's operating at a pretty heavy subsidy because they're probably not getting that much revenue out of it. That's it.
So kind of to do a recap real quickly for council then, what the city would be looking at from an overall picture is an initial investment of approximately $8.8 million to build the facility. And then as Mrs. Surratt also pointed out, then about just over $200,000 of a deficit a year in terms of operating costs. Now, in terms of funding possibilities, obviously in terms of options, hotel motel tax definitely could be used for that. This is a place where a visitor center could be located. This is a place where, if the council is ever interested, a convention and visitors bureau could be housed out of to promote the conference center as well as the community. In addition, also the incubator space, and this was something that has not been done. This would be very unique to Duncanville, to add that component of that incubator co-working space, and type B funds or 4B funds could be used to fund that as well. So obviously there's a large price tag initially, and there is that subsidy involved every year, but there's multiple funding options to get those funds from. So with that, I just want to,
if I could add something, and I'm sorry, I failed to start out and mention in the beginning of this, backing up why we are here tonight. And so originally this idea was brought up by previous council. And so recognizing three of you are new to this and probably wondering why we're even talking about this, it was brought up with past council. And also the idea of a conference center. And so there's been some discussion. I know the EDC has some interest in a business incubator. As we were heading then into the bond discussion and looking at the potential of a bond election, that was one of the conference center was one of the facilities then that we wanted to be able to have enough information on that it could be presented to a bond committee for review. And so that was why we undertook first the feasibility study to see if it was even feasible and would work, the financial study, and then a cost analysis. So we presented some of that information to the bond committee, which was basically just the facts, the piece that they needed to know about, which was the cost of a facility. The bond committee was interested in the concept, but ultimately, as you know, it did not come forward as a recommendation. However, we have not ever come back to the council with a full report to be able to say, okay, here's what all of the feasibility studies showed, and that's why we're doing this. We've been delaying this report for several months now, and so we wanted to close the loop on it, provide the council with a report, recognizing that you're not the council that authorized it in the first place, but we want to be able to come to you with the results of it. And it's really more for you if this is something that council is still interested in doing. Jessica has offered some different funding options, or if it's not something that you're interested in, you know, but we needed to be able to present this to you to get your input back on how you want us to proceed, if at all.
I would call the impetus of this was that there were conventions or conferences or gatherings that were the school district were having, and they had to leave Duncanville because we didn't have a place for them.
That was correct, yes ma'am. Councilman Thomas is correct. That was some of it too. Some of it was complaints that I think the council was hearing about the cost of the existing hotel operated conference center and having an event there, which was probably why some of the events the school district went to other locations. So that's correct. There was a number of different things that I think generated that interest to say, you know, is this something that we want to look at? And what really was kind of pushing it was also knowing that we were going to look at a lot of projects for a bond, potential bond. This was one of the ones we wanted to be able to get enough information to be able to present it to the bond committee.
Does the $8.8 million include land acquisition?
Yes, it does.
And where is that land? Where's the proposed location for something like that?
The number one proposed location that, working with the consultants that we identified, was the Fair Meadows Shopping Center. That's along Camp Wisdom where the 99-cent store is. And that's simply in relationship to the hotels just being right across the street. That would be very easy for Public Works to work with commuting traffic back and forth. And so that whole lot there was the lot that was identified.
Kevin, thank you.
I've lost the Fair Meadows shopping.
It's where the 99-cent store is.
Across.
And that has, some of that has not been rented out since they built it, right?
It's the 70s. Yes.
Yeah, since the 70s, it's never been rented out.
So we're talking
Store space.
strip mall along, right on campus, and
Yes.
then we're talking that second strip mall behind it.
That's all one property, yes.
And then is Mr. McIntyre mentioned land acquisition. We're talking about buying the entire thing, demolishing the existing structures, and putting this on top of it.
There would be two options. The 18.8 included purchasing the property and also possibly salvaging some of the back for the incubator space. However, the needs for a conference,
Whoa. 18.8 or 8.8?
No.
You said 8.8 earlier.
No, 18.8.
8?
It's
You said
in-
you
it's
said
in-
8.8 is the total cost.
The 18 is the total cost.
It was spread out over 2 years.
Yes.
It's on that back up.
And that's what
Yeah, 2 years.
HBS's figures were based on.
To the consultant, this council has a tendency to net out profit and loss. And that's why I asked the question, is that for the life of this facility, it's going to operate at over a $200,000 loss per year.
That's our.
And so could you go back to the chart showing the income projected per year so that we can find out what the income is minus the $220,000 per year loss, and to actually bring it down to an operating statement that says this is what we're going to net after the losses of being incurred $220,000 a year.
So you're trying to say what with the?
Well, I want to make an operating statement. So I got revenue, I got
total revenue.
expenses, and I got a bottom line. So
Right.
somewhere, I want to see if that bottom line with revenues ever turns into a positive, knowing that just in operating it, it's $222,000 a year. So what's the annual income stabilized out to 2024?
That is, that,
It's, so, okay, I got it. So the income is 1.6 million.
right,
Expenses are
it'll bring in
1.8.
1.6 million, expenses are 1.8. We pull out the
a non-operating expense of capital maintenance because we feel like it's important. So your gross profit would be the 174.
Yeah.
At just revenues, operating expenses, without any sort of, there's obviously no debt service on this yet, or anything like that.
Exactly.
So the debt service would be in addition to this. There's no property tax that you have to worry about, and if you had some sort of management company, a management fee would also decrease that, or increase the loss.
And how do we bring into this equation the hot funds?
Do you want to go ahead and put up the economic impact?
Sure.
Yeah. I guess that's fine. The hot funds can be utilized by state statute because it is a convention center. And so that is a legal usage of hot funds. So that can work to offset that deficit. And that's
Also very
I'm
common.
asking, what's the projected hot fund
What are they
revenues?
Oh,
As a
for
result of-
2020,
As a result of building this?
as a result of building this. We did not.
Yeah, we didn't, yeah, it's not.
But I think you assumed the number of rooms at with the Hampton Inn and the, yeah. So
Right.
assuming that there are no new hotels, that would be the generation of the hotels that would generate hotel occupancy.
So if we were to complete this financial analysis, the income from, the hot fund income would also offset some of that $222,000 loss.
It would assist in that. Now you have to
And
remember
that's
that.
the subsidization you're talking about that other cities are doing.
Yeah, so they have various forms. Some of them do it just through their general fund. Some of them earmark sales taxes or hotel taxes specifically for the operations.
The heart feels small.
It is. Yep.
So the 125,900 in fiscal impact, that is an incremental impact of sales tax and hotel taxes on an annual basis that would be generated. So it's not including what's already being generated in your hotel taxes.
Right, right.
Can I ask a quick question? In terms of funding the bonds to build this, I saw a different mix of HOT funds versus pledged sales tax. Is it common to fund the entire thing if you've got the money to fund the debt service out of HOT funds?
Yes, that's the most common method, even for the big facilities, is a motel tax or a hot tax, however. Yes, that seems to be the most common way. Sales tax, occasionally, they'll add a half penny or something, something like that. Food and beverage taxes in some of the larger communities are also fairly common, and auto rental taxes are the other one that they don't generate a lot, but when you piece it all together for some of the larger centers. But hotel taxes for all sizes is the most popular method of funding. Simply because that's who you're trying to attack,
Sure,
correct? And
sure.
those are the
Makes
people that are going to
sense.
pay it,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'll try to craft my comment to be fairly nice, to say that this item is a futuristic item way down the line for us. And respected of the council that put it on the table, just don't think we're there yet to move forward with this item, to having future conversation. In respect to the council, I'm not sure how they came to the conclusion of spending dollars for even for the study at this time, because we have so much other things on the table that we need to get there before we get here. And then especially when you bring an item to the table that's a lost income revenue, we're just not there yet.
The thought of a conference center was a good idea in my mind when I heard about it. After seeing the dollars here, it's a sticker shock, and it really is a hard pill to swallow. I understand what's being said about what a city considers something like this as an amenity, akin to a library. Spending close to $19 million, knowing it's never going to pay for itself in terms of an ROI, it's just, it's hard to swallow from a business perspective.
Yeah,
And
and I would hope in the future, as we look at things that we want to consider, that we find a better way to conduct the study before we go out and ask for a consultant to give us back information. I would hope that we, in the future, consider that before we come back and get a study that tells us we're looking to lose more money.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
No comments for the individuals that have arrived. We reversed the order of the briefings, knowing that the interest in the logo, we wanted the entire council involved in. So we did the conference center first, and now we're moving into the consultants briefing on the logo. Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. We have back with us this evening Ms. Fit Brands, and this is Jeff Woolman. And so he will go over the modifications that you requested at the last meeting that we had presented the logo option. And so with that, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Good to see you all again. And excited to have you take a look at the changes that we've made based on input and feedback from you. Little caveat here, I'm not calling your projector ugly, but it skews the colors so badly that showing these designs in color is, in our opinion, a bad idea, ill-advised, because color is such an emotional component of design that if the colors don't show correctly, it could cause you to reject a design that might otherwise be most acceptable to you. So here we go. And
I could ask a question. Have the designs we're looking at been resubmitted back to the logo committee?
No, they were not.
They have not?
No. Once council, the logo committee made their recommendation, and then once council made the change, the feedback and the recommendations that they wanted to see, those have been made, and so now it's in the council's.
Okay.
And just to prove my point, the blue you're seeing up there is not blue, it's gray. So these are supposed to be black and white, and this is what you're seeing. This was one of the strong choices that made it to the final cut. This is actually one of the earlier designs, and we just wanted to get it before your eyes for your consideration one more time. And these two, I'm going to jump back and forth, were our efforts to take your existing logo and update it, modernize it, and put it into a format that would be much easier to reproduce. So there's one, there's another. Both of them try and convey a sense of progression or motion in regard to the city. You recognize the state, I believe. And we thought it would be helpful to show these to you in context of nearby cities. And so we are the center row, the four options, and you'll see your near neighbors above and below us. One of the things that we'll do in one of the next slides, I'm going to ask you to squint just a little bit, okay? because that basically gives you a sense of what a logo is going to look like from a distance or when rendered in a smaller size. So I think it's fairly obvious that Hutchins up there has the same problem that your current logo has, and we'll get to that here. So I'm going to show you your current logo and the new options. And again, if you give them the squint test, you'll see that you can still read the name, City of Champions, and there are some features that stand out. But in your current logo, if you give that one the squint test, it kind of goes very soft and hazy and out of focus. So our desire tonight is that you consider the options we brought to you. This is the result of, I don't know how many months at this point, but heading toward a year's worth of hard work and back and forth and very good feedback and input. And I leave it to you to decide the next step.
So what color scheme are we really looking at?
We'd be looking
Where
at a
there's
similar.
black, what would that be? Where there's another color, what would that be?
It would be a blue and a red. We would try to stay consistent, which is what council has requested with the current, similar to the current color. So you'd be looking at a blue and a red and a white. And really what we wanted to do was for you all to look at these and see if you wanted to move forward with a different one or if you wanted to stay with that one. And if you did decide on a different one, we can present color options, and then we would bring back something for council to vote on at a future date. We're really trying to get some guidance here in terms of what you'd like to do.
But help me with the color. Okay, the funky blue would be red or blue.
It would be, so do you want to go ahead?
Well, you'll see some of these require some additional shades of color, okay? So clearly, when you're looking at the one on the upper left, the black would be a navy blue. We have a lighter flag blue surrounding the star, and red in that right-hand corner, okay?
Okay.
And Duncanville would be the flag blue color, not the navy, almost black, okay?
Okay.
The one on lower left, you'd have a navy blue and then shades of blue, and City of Champions would be red, okay? One at upper right, what looks black or dark, whatever, would again be a navy blue, City of Champions, and the left-hand side of Texas would be red, and the star would be gold.
Gold.
Yes. Bottom right, you're looking again at navy blue, a flag blue, City of Champions in red, and a lighter blue where the streaks start after the star before it becomes the navy blue where it heads out the left-hand side of the circle. But there's reds and there are reds, there's blues and there are blues, and so if council were to select one of these to replace the current logo with, we would provide different shades of those for your consideration.
Okay. So what's the next step in the process?
So this evening, what we're asking of council is some direction in terms of, do you want to stay with the existing logo? Is there another logo that you like better up there? And if so, then what we will do is we'll bring back, if it's a new logo, we'll bring back a new logo with some color variations to for council to vote on at the next meeting.
So I'm sorry, the existing logo is still in the middle, right?
Our existing one, yes, sir.
Okay, let's go around the table and see if you have any comments.
I like the lower right.
Lower right. Thomas?
Oh, you don't have an opinion?
Or?
I like the lower left. I like the simplicity of the design.
Okay.
I like the upper right. It's got 3 colors in it.
All right. Mr. LeBlanc?
No, I don't have a comment.
Ms. Jameson?
Is the center one supposed to be our existing one?
Yes, correct.
I like that one.
Mr. Phillips?
I'm not still convinced yet. If I had to select one, it would be this top right, but I'm still challenged with the D being so slender and just so plain. So I really can't find one really that's standing out to me. Plus, if the color was going to help, we should have identified. We should have already rejected if the color would help. It's
Print some color handouts. Print some color
But
handouts.
that's the only one that I could even begin working with. But that straight Duncanville with the D is just not doing anything for me. So I don't have anything else up there that's really close.
I'm sorry, you would never present a piece of artwork and say, just imagine the color. You just wouldn't do it. So,
Well, we didn't want to skew the council in terms of color. Color creates a lot of emotion, and so that's why we wanted you to
excuse
look
me,
at the,
color is part of the whole package.
to
You've got
look
to
at
see
the
color.
design.
But it is inclusive. It doesn't stand alone, color over here and the design. It's the whole package. It's what it looks like.
Shouldn't have given us so many options.
Well,
Right.
the colors are horrible.
It's black and white.
Yeah, we're supposed to use our imagination on that.
You don't do that on our work.
We have some imagination, but I mean, we've definitely said the one in the upper left is gone.
Gone.
Okay? And there's been a couple for the upper right, and I could live with that as well.
I still like our current one.
I do too. I mean, comparatively, if there was something that was just real dynamic, that was different, but there's not.
The limitations on that middle one is that when you shrink it, the lines go down.
Yeah,
And you don't have to
that's
shrink
what
it too much.
And that's what I heard, is that it was difficult to
You can't get a
replicate in
logo, you
embroidery
can't get it on
and those
your-
kinds of things, and that's
Can't
what
get it
I'm
on
thinking.
stationery.
So just simplify all the fuzzy stuff and make the star more significant, eliminate all the background stuff, and we've got our existing logo that's easy to replicate in embroidery and everything else with its existing colors. And I know that the bottom left was supposed to be an attempt at making our existing one more simple, but it took off the D in the middle, which I like the D in the middle. I guess what I'm going off of too is when I've been to some conferences and I have our Duncanville lapel pin, it's interesting how many people go to that pin and they stop and they look at it and they say, oh, that's Duncanville. And it just makes an impression. So what we don't have is consensus. We don't even have anywhere near any agreement.
I think it's important to have the D on there, Duncanville. Otherwise you.
Yeah, I like the D somewhere in it. That's
Why
why I
don't
said.
we put the flag on the upper right into the D in the middle with the star? The way with the 3D star version, take the information inside the large D and put it inside the D here in the middle, regular.
Look, they obviously moved it around. Look on your paper.
Yeah.
This is the existing one.
Well, that's less busy than it. In the middle, I'm speaking of the middle of that D. It's less busy than the one in the middle of the D.
Oh, you're
The
talking about
flag.
the shape of that D?
Yeah, I'm talking about the shape of the D and the flag and the star would go into the existing shape of the
And
D.
you still keep the red and blue parts of Texas?
I can't see the blue, I can't see the color yet.
Mark, I'm not here.
Oh, I'm just saying, take the upper right in the middle of the D, place it in the existing, one that we have in the middle, and we replace it, just flip flop.
So you're just going to change the font of the D in the middle of the existing logo?
Yes,
Is that
I'll
what
take
you're saying?
I'll take the flag and the star, and
Oh.
put it in
But
this.
it's the middle of the state.
Yeah,
I got you.
you're taking away that 3D effect of those stars, and using the one star and the flag in the middle of the Duncanville.
Mr. Cook, the one on the top left, I just want to
Yes.
make sure. Okay.
Yes. Hmm?
Yeah, you're
There was-
saying.
Oh, I said right, I'm sorry, thank you, top. I know what I'm saying, no, I'm just kidding.
The other right.
The other.
In the presentation last time, you actually had this one in color, and it was like on a water tower or something. And it just made an impression. But I don't know that the council, that's been months ago, I don't know if they remember that.
Understood.
I mean, it's something that you can see from a distance. It's simple, but it's identifiable.
I kind of like what Mr. Cooks is saying, though. Take that D in the upper left. Take out what we have in the middle of our existing logo and put it in the middle of our existing logo.
And you'd have to change the colors. of that
Yeah,
D.
there'd be color change, but in terms of the overall impact of the image.
Change the colors we don't see.
Like that tag you own is really black.
We're at a standstill.
Sorry?
We're at a standstill.
Well, does anybody like what Mr. Cooks is saying besides me?
I'm okay with it. I agree with John Ed. I'm an engineer, and I think in terms of right angles
Yeah.
and black and white, but I've got to see the color.
We'll have an art background and a
Yeah.
paint, and that's ridiculous. You do not show
Yeah,
logos without
I
color.
can't
You don't
choose
do it.
without the color on it.
So,
Because the red, white, and blue in the middle of the D, and then you have the darker D, and then you have it on the Texas, but it has colors, I'd have to see that in color because it's sounding too busy to me right now.
So can we go through one more iteration to come back with what's being said in the colors that
Yes,
it's
we've gotta
actually
have
rendered
color.
in?
But the direction that I recall is that on this top right one, that you make the D more, so that it
Outline.
disappears in the
Outline
Rio
it all.
Grande, I mean, and in the Red River, the D disappears. And they wanted more definition right there. They wanted a different D.
And I don't like that one at all, because the
That was-
D disappears in
I agree
parts of
with
the
that,
state.
yeah. That kind, I know it's, there's a lot of marketing that uses that disappearing edge, but I don't like it.
Yeah.
To me, in my mind, it disconnects to me. I really like what Mark is saying.
I'd like to see the top right-hand one, the colors, and the D that's more defined.
So we want one more iteration on 2, or one more iteration on the middle of what Mark is recommending? In color. Print color, using the actual color scheme, not just what we would see up there on
So,
the screen.
clarification, so Mark, are you suggesting that we put the D up there into our existing one, or into the one?
An existing.
The
Oh, okay,
existing.
okay, I was.
So we can see that one and then see
Yeah,
the top right with a different D in
that worked too.
it, in color.
Yeah, in color.
Yeah.
So-
I concur with that as well.
So take, I'm just gonna iterate what I think I'm hearing. Take the existing D in the upper left, plug it into the middle of our existing logo, and plug it into the state in the upper right-hand logo. Is that what I'm hearing?
No,
No?
I don't, I want the D in the upper right-hand one to be more defined.
Just more defined, not
Yes.
replace with what's in the upper
Yes.
left?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
With
I
the-
misunderstood.
By define, do you mean not cutting out the stake? Is
Yes.
that, but as far as the shape of the D, is that okay? Or do you want something a little more formal looking?
A little bit more formal looking.
Okay.
So you're bringing us back to, we're talking about bringing us to the root, to look.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm hearing.
Something that will look good for a water tank.
Okay.
And good on a shirt.
So, a question, instead of the current logo, would you be open to the one in the bottom left hand, putting the D in that one? Because it's not shadowed, it has a more updated font, but putting the D in that one. So the shadowing in the current logo would be very difficult to reproduce, and the font is a more dated font.
The font of Duncanville?
Yes.
That's updated? It reminds me of when I
Times
drive
New
down
Roman.
20.
Are you talking about,
It's an old
the
typewriter
current
font.
one?
No?
That one, I don't care for that font.
Neither do I.
Or it's the same, really, as, well, the two on the bottom are. And
When you drive down 20, look at the marquee of Duncanville in black. It's just like these two Ds. And I just hate when I drive by it every time.
So what are you saying?
So I'm saying that, I don't know how that's an upgraded font, but a little more creativity will help. Yeah, our current D is a larger D. Looks like we're on a diet on this D, on the rest of these Ds. Nothing against the diet, but still, it's a smaller D.
And I really can't look at a D in that, our current one, it's kind of hard. Like a D out of that.
So I think we play with those two that we just talked about. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, we can also provide you with serif and sans serif versions of those two chosen,
That'd be good, too.
those two directions.
I don't know what the name of the font is, but there's a font that it's all in caps, but it has a taller uppercase than a lowercase cap. What's that called, you know? There's several variations of it, but
Well, that looks like a variation of the font Garamond in your current logo, and there are updated versions of that where the small letters, the lowercase letters, render larger in comparison to the capital letters.
yeah,
So that's doable.
yeah, okay. So when you come back next time, don't worry about what shows up on the screen. Give us what's going to be printed out so we can see actual color.
Yes, sir.
And if you need to bring your projector, where's bring it?
Okay.
And I like the Duncanville font on the existing logo.
Okay.
I do too.
I do 2, 3, 4. It's Times New Roman, it's serif, it's what millions of years of study says that the human eye is the easiest to read.
So do you want the line to stay then in between Duncanville and the City of Champions? Obviously, we understand that you like that font. We're gonna move the D from the top left into the state of Texas minus the drop shadow. Do you like the line there?
The line actually disappeared in my looking at it until you just said it.
I think the
My
line.
brain didn't even pick up the line.
I think the line is still good.
The line is still good?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
You can't give us too much more.
We'll bring it back one more time.
Yeah, I don't know why we started it really, because you have a copy of it on this sheet and it looks pretty good. And I have a coat with it sewn on and it looks fine. And extremely expensive to change everything.
Yeah, what was the tag? 6,000 something?
To change initially, I don't remember the cost, but I mean, most things will be changed out over time.
I know street signs and everything else is gonna be attrition, but
we're also at the
business
point,
cards and stationery is all template anyway, it's all digital template, so.
but we do know that we will have the opportunity for logos coming up soon with the 67 renovations and with some water tank upgrades or maintenance that will be done here in the next couple of years. So being able to have the logo then to put on there, whether it's the current one or whatever it is, we don't want to put the current one up there if it's going to change. But and same thing with 67, we know on those the retaining wall there will be places for sitting there. Otherwise,
Cast concrete, or whatever the material is, yeah.
Concrete panels.
And when you come back, could you bring those costs again?
I thought you were looking at Jessica. Jessica,
I do not have.
We could have moved on this. This is taking way too long. We should have moved on with this. Oh, you're talking about time.
We're done.
I know, it's kind of dumb.
I anticipated a great deal more discussion on this particular aspect of the meeting.
We didn't talk about it.
I understand. Okay, we are recessing at 6:42.
Yeah.
And we'll reconvene in city council at 7 o'clock on the Good evening. It is 7 o'clock and calling to order the Duncanville City Council meeting for December 4th, 2018. Okay, thank you for coming out on a cold, chilly night. Things are getting different in our weather forecast, which is going to have some discussion as we get into it just in a little bit. So we're going to have our invocation tonight by Councilmember Patrick LeBlanc.
Let us pray. Gracious God, our Father, how excellent is thy name in all the earth. Father, when we think about you and who you are, Father, we just have to say thank you for your goodness, for your kindness, your tender mercy, and the love that you've shown to each and every one of us. And Father, we just have to start by saying thank you for being better to us than we've been to ourselves. You are indeed a wonderful and a loving God. Father, we bow before your presence today at this time, Lord, that we thank you for our city. We thank you for our police and our fire. We thank you for our citizens. We thank you for this council, for the opportunity to serve those people that have called us to this position. So now, Lord, we pray that you govern our thoughts, you control our emotions, and Father, the things that we do, first of all, will glorify and magnify your name, but then also edify these your people. Father, we pray now for your counsel. Come, Lord, and as Solomon said, Lord, we pray you give us wisdom to lead and guide these people. In Jesus' name we pray now. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledges to our flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated. Moving on to our agenda, item number 1, I will pass on the mayor's report tonight. Are there any council members' reports? Councilmember Cooks.
Yeah, councilman's report for me today is I want to thank Richard Summerlin and Kevin Hutman, as well as Councilmember Dunn Burnett for joining the Lunch and Laugh and Learn at Luby's last week. We had a great turnout on both sessions, and staff did a great job at answering questions for the constituents that's there. And I'll just tell you that we have more than District 4 that's coming, and so that's great. So Dunn was able to meet some of his constituents as well. So thank you, Councilman, for being there. We really appreciate it. I will not host one in the month of December for Christmas, but we'll return in January, or may just invite. We'll wait until our State of the City and when it's coming up, and we may cancel for January as well, but we'll wait and see. But I want to thank everybody for attending that. And then secondly, I received an invitation to a Family and Friends Day for a church named Family Faith Christian Church, and just got an invitation to attend. Council members, I just want you to know that when they put up their list of prayer on the list, Duncanville City Council and Mayor and the council was on their screen to pray for our city. So I want to thank the church, which is the Family Faith Christian Church on Camp Wisdom, for putting us on their prayer list always. So thank you for Pastor James. Can't think of Pastor James' last name, but Pastor James from that church, and I want to thank them for doing that. And they're in your district, so. Family Faith Christian Church.
Hilltop City and Campus.
Across the street?
On the south side.
That's not my district.
That's not your district, okay. All right, done. Another good job, done. All right, thank you, that concludes.
Thank you, and Councilmember Schwartz.
I just want to take this time to remind everybody that your winter averaging has started this month on your water bill. So the amount of water you use in December, January, and February will average out, and that's what your sewer bill will be based on for the rest of the year. So it is advisable to check for leaks. One of the more common leaks in a house is the commodes. The flapper valve in the commode leaks. You'd be amazed how much water goes through there, and then that just gins up a higher sewer rate for the rest of the year. So just pay attention, look for leaks around your house, and try your best to keep the sewer portion of your water bill down. That's my public service announcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further council members' reports, city manager's report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would like to announce, unfortunately, the Christmas parade that was scheduled for this Friday, December 7th, is being canceled due to the weather forecast. We've been watching the forecast for the last several days, and it has not changed as far as the amount of rain or the probability of rain being 100% Friday evening, and predicting heavy rainfall during the time of the parade. And so today, staff events team met and determined that it was best to cancel the parade for safety reasons. We will postpone the tree lighting portion of the event, though, to the following Friday, December 14th. And so that will be December 14th at 7 p.m., the tree lighting portion, and that will include choirs and then other family events as well on Main Street. But the parade itself will be canceled. Thank you.
And just wanted to thank all of our city staff for putting up the lights that we have already. The city's looking beautiful, and I know that's a lot of work, so our thanks to all the folks that are doing that and taking care of the lights for us. It's always nice to be able to enjoy Christmas with those lights. Next item on our agenda is proclamations and presentations, and we have recognition of Keep Duncanville Beautiful Winter 2018 Curb Appeal Residential Properties. Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It is my pleasure tonight to be able to present to you the photos from the properties that have been selected by our Keep Duncanville Beautiful board members. And here with me today to help present this is our board chair, Bobby Cutler-Hill. And I have a slight technical difficulty here. We're going to pull up some photos, and I'll call out the property. And if you are here in the audience as one of the winners of this, if you would come down at the end, we'd like to take a photo with all of our winners.
It's always a joy to watch a cursor run around the screen.
All right, for our first one, we have in District 1, Robert Langston at 918 Carriage Way. Our second one for District 2 is Raimundo Garcia at 303 Blossom Drive. For District 3, we have Richard and Sarah Harmon at 306 East Center Street. And for District 4, we have James Teta at 939 Fairway Drive. And then for District 5, we have Mary Wright at 1214 Rita Lane. Yes, that's 1214 Rita Lane. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, so we would like to, at this time, thank all of those. And is there anyone here in the audience who is from one of those properties that was listed? Okay. As outstanding examples in the community, and we appreciate their commitment to keeping Duncanville beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, and we appreciate the committee's work in selecting those homes as well. Thank you for your time and energy putting into that. All right, moving on our agenda, going to item number 3, which is citizens input. And at this time, individuals from the citizens who would like to address the council have some cards here, and you have 2 minutes to address the council. When you come up, please state your name and your address, and understand that when you do address the council cannot discuss any issues raised or make any decisions at this time that you might bring to our attention. But we can refer that to the city staff for any research and future possible action. So the first card I have is from Tai Feng Lu. And please state your name and address in 2 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Christina Lu, 434 Blue Ridge Drive. My topic is appreciation for Assistant Manager Mr. Paul Frederickson approved what the Councilwoman Leslie Thomas told me right after October 16th council meeting, first time I attend, and instead of skyrocketing charge $2,151.95 for that illegal operation, outrage, the robbery accomplished by police officer, and he would allow me to do the claim of compensation from the city. So I'm thankful for that. And even director of public works, he allowed me to extend it to December 15th, which is 2 weeks after November 30. And I have met a councilman of my district, Mark Cooks, and he is a very wonderful, humble guy, and he meet us in the Ruby restaurant every Thursday, and the fourth Thursday of the month, to reach all the resident constituents what's in their mind. That's very wonderful. Thank you for everything you guys do. Have a great evening. Oh, by the way, we have this happiness for Merry Christmas. It's 9 by 11 as a background. Center is a big super jumbo happiness. Okay, 100 way writing Chinese character happiness. Thank you very much. Time is up. Happy Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is Michael Joe Adams.
You want me up there now, or you want me to wait till afterwards like last time? I could do.
Well, last time was a public hearing.
Yeah.
And tonight is not specified as a public hearing, so it's
Yeah.
best now to address this for what you have.
Okay. I hope that, everything is put to a stop, that they shall go forward until they can show more potential in what they want to do, in essence to what's already happening. The flooding on the roofs of I think they're 50 by 100-foot long buildings. The downspouts, the water comes off the downspouts, and here it comes. And what I talked about last time about the flooding and erosion is worsened than what I first anticipated. Now, as far as building a road down through, what they were showing you up here, when their little laser went out, they were just in the middle of trying to punctuate what they wanted to do and could do. That was the first phase, cars in, cars out, and then they came back and started talking about building a road down behind there. If they were allowed to build that parking lot, that road doesn't have to come down behind their house. They come right off, straight off there, right behind the church, right straight, because I watched it for 2 days, and nobody travels that. It's blocked off for those people to go down, make the road, the turn that they want to make with the road. If it comes down behind their houses, turns and goes up, it doesn't interfere with anything. It goes right back off on the Daniel. But I also police and watch the area there on Cedar Hill Road. That's very dangerous. It is a dead man's curve right there. And if there's anybody, they don't do 30 like they say. It's always plus. That I watched it, and cars that come around are going too fast that I tried to pull out. I was sitting actually where they would be trying to come in and out right there, and they didn't hesitate to slow down. Did I try to jump out in front of them? That's just the way it is. It's common law. They're not going to, and there's going to be a lot of accidents right there. So what I'm saying, what they showed you in and out, then they changed and inverted what they were showing up there on the screen to build that road behind, and it shouldn't be allowed either. That's just the field dirt that they want to bring in, the lay of the land. No dirt should be allowed to be brought in, because it is a floodplain. And what they've done, they were able to take the hill and smooth it out and make a mess. They made a mess. Thank you.
I'm not sure that we got your address.
I didn't put it down. 351 Parkview, one word.
Yeah, it wasn't on the card, so.
No.
So
I put my phone number on there, didn't I?
Yes, but your address again, please?
351 Parkview Drive.
Parkview Drive.
One word, Parkviaw. It's got to be Drive, because we
Okay.
have a circle in the court.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes.
Appreciate it. The next card I have is R.L. Barnard.
Oriole Barnard. I live at 343 Parkview. And first of all, I'd like to thank the council for their time during the last meeting and this meeting also. Since I spoke, I know there's a real concern about the drainage of the village school and the residents that live on the other side there on Parkview. But I'd like to especially thank the mayor and Patrick LeBlanc and Mark Kutz for the questions that y'all actually directed toward the planning committee. I think it made them aware, a lot more aware of the problems we have down there. And I feel like there's a real concern. I talked to, let's see who it was. It was John Brunner right before the meeting, and he's a city engineer. And we were talking about the drainage, and I'd talked to him before, so I know there's a true concern there. I just want to make sure that the concern turns into true action by the engineers that are actually going to put this in. Like I said, I'm not against the school whatsoever. I just want to make sure that we as residents don't have problems after the school goes in with the drainage and whatever, because we have a history of drainage in that area. The other concern is when if they're going to put a road in behind those mobile buildings back there, how much of the trees are they going to be pulling out? You know, if they would come down and show us or talk to us or whatever, that would help. But of course, it's their property, and they'll be able to do what they want. But like I say, just the concern for the residents, it would help. But thank y'all very much for listening to us, and I know the concern is there.
Thank you, Mr. Barnard. The next individual is Linda Baumgartner.
Linda Bumgarner, and I live at 307 Cedar Creek. My house backs up to where Cedar Creek and 10 Mile Creek come together. And my house was flooded in 2007. Because we moved there in 1968. We were not in a floodplain then, but of course nothing was. Thought we were out in the country forever, and everything built up. The water has continued to increase in those two creeks, and of course they come together there. Now the school backs up to that, and it looks like the water is going to increase even more so if they pave it or if they don't put a holding tank of some sort or something. And I feel like that it will greatly increase the probability of my property being flooded again because of the increased flow into the creek, which already is at maximum capacity. And when they come together, they hit the back of my house. And we have had to put up, the barriers, and the city helped us with that, and we did put up some, but I don't think it's going to be enough to keep from destroying the property there. So I'm just hoping that they take that in consideration and perhaps consider putting some sort of holding pool, like they did in Cedar Hill. When they developed Cedar Hill, they made everybody that put concrete down put a holding tank down, and it had an effect on the water flow behind our house. So if you've not been there, go there, and it has already happened once. Take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. And the following items may be acted upon in one motion, and city council member may request items be removed from the consent agenda for individual consideration. City manager, please read the consent agenda. Oh, sorry, yeah, city secretary, I'm sorry.
Consider the minutes for the October 29th, 31st through 31, 2018 City Council special meeting and the November 20th, 2018 City Council regular meeting.
Chair will consider a motion to approve.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Please vote. Okay. All right. Thank you. Motion's approved. Moving on to items for individual consideration. Item 5A, consider an ordinance amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance and map as heretofore amended by amending the existing GR general retail zoning and R-2.2 single-family zoning to include an SUP, special use permit, to allow an institution of educational nature, parens charter school, on lots 1-6, Duncanville Church of Christ Edition, approximately 27.23 acres, Dallas County, Texas, more commonly known as 402 and 410 West Daniel Road, and 1540 and 1550 Cedar Hill Road, Duncanville. During the November 20, 2018 City Council meeting, the public hearing was closed and the ordinance consideration postponed to the December 4th, 2018 City Council meeting. Before this is briefed, just need a point of order in terms of what needs to happen here. Since there is opposition to this ordinance by law, we have to have a supermajority vote in order to approve this. So a supermajority vote in this particular case is going to be 5 out of 7 or 6 out of 7. 6 out of 7 in order to approve this ordinance. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, Chastity Allen Benson, City Planner. Just to rehash some of the information from the last presentation, the majority of this property is zoned single-family residential, which permits the charter school by right, which is why the charter school is in existence there now. There is a portion, which is the 410 West Daniel Dale on the hard corner of Cedar Hill and Daniel Dale Road, that is zoned general retail. And so the applicant is proposing to extend their parking area and potential future ball fields into that area that is zoned non-residential. As a reminder, because the remainder of that property is zoned residential, should the request be denied or the applicant decide to withdraw the application, they can still redesign the parking lot and fit everything on the residential design, excuse me, the residential district. It would not come before P&Z or council because it's permitted by right. So that would just be approved by staff and there would be no conditions on that approval. The site plan shows phase 2 as well as phase 3 construction. The major consideration initially was related to the parking and the traffic. The applicant has submitted a traffic circulation plan in compliance with their TIA, the traffic impact analysis that they submitted as well, and addressed the traffic by, I'm going to go to the plan, by adding a temporary road. We don't have the laser tonight, I don't think. The temporary road that extends behind, or from the proposed new constructed parking lot to the east behind the portable buildings and goes and connects to the existing parking lot and exits onto Daniel Dale. Part of the consideration, part of the discussion that we had during the public hearing last time was related to entering and exiting on to Cedar Hill. So the applicant has proposed during pickup and drop-off times that will be an entry only and allow for the circulation through the site and exiting out onto Daniel Dale. The queuing of the new parking area allows for approximately 118 cars to be stacked on site. So those vehicles would not be backing up onto Cedar Hill. Now that we have the potential for them to be stacked onto the school property. And again, with phase 3, this is an exhibit of phase 3. Once the portables are removed, the temporary road would go away and there would be a permanent connection between the proposed constructed parking lot to the existing drive to the building. So there would still be an entry onto Cedar Hill and an exit onto Daniel Dale, but the permanent connection would be further north. Again, this is the site plan. There is a matter of modification. We did add several conditions to address the comments from the last public hearing. One of those being to specify the number of portable buildings that would be constructed with phase 2, and that actually is 3, not 2 as listed. It is 3. We mentioned that during the briefing session, so should you recommend approval, that should be noted. We also added additional special conditions related to the traffic circulation plan as well as the temporary drive. The last time that exhibit was not in your in the ordinance for consideration, so it has been included, and the specifics related to the maintenance of the drive, the temporary drive, making sure that that is in place as well. Regarding the drainage, there has been a condition added related to the drainage plans, ensuring that they are designed to our city standards, which our city engineers is here as well to speak to the point related to not increasing runoff onto properties. That's just part of the drainage plan approval, and that would be something that would be required. So they would not be able to do that. They've also, their engineer has also been working with the city engineer with regard to the drainage plans themselves and how to address some of the existing conditions or the existing conditions related to the portable buildings and the new construction of the parking lot. Of course, they cannot correct existing conditions that happened before they occupied the property, but certainly the conditions related to the portable building construction as well as the new parking lot construction will be addressed with the new drainage plans. We also added a condition related to traffic control measures to make sure that that is an ingress only, an entry only from Cedar Hill Road out and exiting out until Daniel Dale. And then, of course, again, the limitation on the portable buildings. This is the area, again, the corner piece of the property, as you see, is GR. The remainder of it is residential. So as I mentioned, you know, they could redesign the site to fit everything on the residentially zoned property, you know, if the request does not get approved. However, this allows for additional stacking the way that it's been designed this way. Here's an aerial to show the existing campus. the site plans as well, traffic circulation plan again. As mentioned, we did receive a petition. The petition was specifically opposing an exit onto Cedar Hill Road. That has been modified in the conditions to an entry only from Cedar Hill Road during pickup and drop-off times, but the petitioners did not withdraw the petition, and so it still forces the supermajority. This is a map. There were questions during the last meeting related to the floodplain. As mentioned previously, a lot of these houses were constructed prior to FEMA dedication of the floodplain. But as you can see, there is a 500-year, 100-year, and actually floodway, which is the creek there that encompasses a lot of those properties there. So while the applicant will be required to address drainage as it relates to their development, there certainly will be some impacts that precede this development. Plan Commission did recommend approval, and again, based on the discussion at the last meeting, we added those 8 conditions to the SUP, and that's my presentation.
Thank you. We have 2 options available to us in terms of rules of procedure. We can take a motion to approve, or I can open it to discussion and to the council, and then we can accept a motion to whichever way the council wishes to proceed from that point. Because of the nature of this particular issue, my personal preference would be that we open it to discussion before taking a motion, and probably the most prudent way of action. So if we want to go that way, if you just get a nod of the head that we have some consent that way. All right, we will do that then. So it's clear to the audience and to ourselves and city attorney, what we're going to do is not take a motion at this point, but open it up to council discussion. And then once that's concluded, we will open it to a motion from someone on council. So, Ms. Jamison, please.
Yes, I want to ask you some questions. What specifically did you do to address the drainage issue?
I could ask John Bunner, our city engineer, to come forward, and the applicant's engineer is present as well, in terms of some of the options that they've looked at.
Because last council meeting, we heard a tremendous amount and saw pictures of horrid flooding.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. RL brought that to me actually prior to the meeting, and I was unable to attend at the last meeting. We have since discussed additional inlets along the temporary road, or a swale along the temporary road, as well as some additional grading to the east, where there is a slight mound that is inhibiting water from getting to the creek to begin with, and is actually being forced to the south just because of the grading.
Would it be helpful to put up the photo of the property and kind of help that one? Would it be helpful to discuss it with that photo up so we understand what you're talking about?
Not really a pointer, so I don't know how effective I would be. Well, my arm's not quite that long. But so all of the portable buildings right now, the temporary portables, are in the 500-year floodplain.
Right.
The grading that I'm referring to is actually approximately where the call out for the 500-year floodplain is pointing. It looks like some fill a long time ago possibly got put there, and it caused a rise in the surface. So instead of drainage runoff being able to go to the creek, it's actually being forced to the south directly on the residents' properties.
So
yes, ma'am.
So you're going to leave the built-up dirt there and just put?
No, I'm advising to regrade, if not regrade the whole area, at least develop a swale or install a swale through that section so that water can continue working its way east and not have to go to the south.
Okay, and Dennis, brother, what do you think?
Well, obviously,
Need your mic. Thank you.
Anything that's or blocking the flow of water needs to be graded down so the water can flow. It does appear to me that this is really downstream from the problem that we're talking about or that we saw. Look, that's going into Bennell Branch, downstream of the houses. I think everything will help, but.
Well, is it going to cure it?
Well, that's just one of several things I think their engineer's looking at.
So there's more things you're going to do besides just grade the land?
Correct. I haven't seen the plans. He hasn't had the appropriate amount of time to revise the drainage plans, but he is working on them right now, the engineer for Village Tech.
Okay, you say working on it. So it's not in writing that this is part of
That
the
is
SUP?
conditional as part of the SUP. Yes, ma'am.
It is in writing, part of the SUP.
Correct. Condition 5.
I'm sorry. Yes, condition 5 includes the requirement for the drainage plans to be reviewed and approved prior, as a part of it.
But this is something that the engineers with the city agreed to and thought this would work. Okay, because we don't want flooding. We do not.
Correct.
Okay, and yeah, the second question I have for you, that is, I know you addressed it, but if you would clarify for the citizens so that they would also understand it. There's 2 different ways you can go. If we don't approve this SUP, then the city makes the decisions on what happens. If we do approve it, then if there's any issues or problems, the council gets involved.
To clarify, it just means that there won't be conditions related to the SUP. It would be just a straight zoning, so it would be, but they would still have to comply with the drainage. That's just part of a city requirement. So they would still have to comply with the drainage. However, we would not be able to condition the traffic circulation and the pickup, drop off, some of the conditions that we've added to the SUP. You're correct. It would not, those would not be in place. However, they would still have to comply with things like drainage and things of that nature.
Councilmember Jameson, if I may point out also, by having the conditions in the SUP, it gives the city more leeway to control the output or the results.
Okay, so I'm just making sure that the citizens understand that if we approve it, doesn't mean it's against you. It means that we have more control. If we don't approve it, then all these conditions that they have right now aren't there. And they can go forward. Is that clear as mud? Well, you'd have to ask an attorney. I don't think that people can flood you, but I was told at the last council meeting that that's a civil matter, which means that you would have to sue them if they're flooding your property, because you can't flood someone's property. You can't send water from your property to theirs. So I would not like that. So that's why I wanted to clarify which is the strongest control. And I did not want you to think that we were abandoning you or not supporting you. And so what we're being told is the strongest control is for us to vote for the SUP, because those are the controls that are in place now. And if there's other issues, then you can come back to us and we can continue to modify or do whatever we need to do. If we don't vote for it, they can still go ahead and build, but it'll just be city codes.
Correct. No, the public hearing.
It's for discussion between the council in regards to what your vote is to be. So the conversation limited, it's up to the chair to, sorry, it's up to the chair to call upon the audience should the council wish to hear from the audience.
So continue, Chad.
Yeah.
I think
I
your
don't ha- I don't have a
clarification
problem.
is perfect.
Yeah, and I think that if they have a question, that I think the council would support, if you want to let them come and ask a question.
Well, you know, what you're explaining, Councilmember Jameson, is explicit and clear, that, yeah. If you would like to approach and ask that question, be happy to entertain your question. Ms. Baumgartner? Oh, sure. But it was Ms. Baumgartner that I heard, but yes. So if you'd state your name and your address for us, please.
Margaret Barnard, 343 Parkview Drive. If you approve, you're approving that temporary road, which is going to raise that dirt behind my house.
What we're approving is the special use permit, and it's the SUP, and it's an SUP, and it's all of the prerequisites and the requirements that they have. Because our understanding is, it's a charter school, and so it qualifies just like any school that they can pretty much go in.
Okay, will the temporary road go in before the drainage situation is taken care of?
That's an answer for our engineer and their engineer to answer. Council is
'Cause
not
that's my main
knowledgeable of
concern.
that, but that particular.
That's my main concern right now, is the extra 2, 3 feet, 4 feet you're gonna add right there at my back door. And that will be going the whole length of my property when you do that, if you approve what they're requesting now.
Would the school's engineer please come up and answer that question? Just give us your name again, please.
Seth Kelly, RLK Engineering, 111 West Main, Allen, Texas. If I heard right, the question was, will the road go in before the drainage is fixed? Is that?
Yes.
It will all happen in conjunction. There will be measures taken during construction I mean, we're obligated to not make the drainage any worse on the neighbor's property. So therefore, during construction, after construction, before construction, we have to comply with those rules. Those are state laws. So to answer your question, during construction, we cannot make the drainage any worse either. So our intention is to actually try to make it better once construction is started. However, if we don't get to start construction, we can't do that. So we're here asking for the use for the SUP. We're more than willing to comply with the city's regulations, state law, all that. I mean, I'm a licensed engineer, but we have to comply.
City Attorney, I'd like to ask a question. So he's saying that they won't make it worse. Well, it's already bad. So should we modify our SUP to say that the drainage situation should be addressed before the road? Because it's already a bad situation.
The way the SUP is worded right now, drainage plans shall be designed and submitted by a licensed engineer and approved by the city engineer per the City of Duncanville standards. What he's saying is that per state requirements in terms of diverting water to other properties, throughout their whole construction process, the state requires them already to do that, to make sure that during that process it doesn't divert it. So there's already law in place that prevents them from diverting water to
Once
the
they start
property.
construction, but
No, through the whole process.
Yeah, because right now there's a problem. The school is now in session and there's a problem. So, I mean, they've got issues now. It was the first that we heard about it, but when the SUP came forth.
Correct.
But there's a problem right now. And so what he's saying is, we're not going to make it worse.
I said we're obligated to not make it worse. We want to make it better. However, we can't do that unless we're allowed to. We need to start construction. We need to get our plans approved and get a permit to start construction to be able to do that. Until we do that, we can't do anything out there without a permit. So
well, yeah, you could start working on the drainage right now.
No, they'll need a permit.
We're required to have a permit.
They'll need a permit.
We need a permit
Right.
to do that.
Well, I mean, you
So-
could get a permit to start working on the drainage. I don't think that isn't.
I mean, this project is one project together. We're not here to try to be defensive or divisive. We
Right.
want to be good neighbors, and we want to help, and we are trying to help out with the traffic and the drainage. But like I said, if we can't start working out there on the site, we can't make it better.
I guess
So
I'm
we-
just surprised after seeing the photos last week, because you showed children playing in 1-foot water and mud, that somebody didn't address it long before this.
I can't,
I know you can't. You're
can't
just an
speak to what
engineer.
happened. I'm the engineer, but I can tell you that we we have full intentions of making this better. We will make it better. We're here trying to get the use approved so that we can move forward with the plans to get the permits and make this better.
So, city attorney, or, does
Yeah,
you
I
have
think
an
Yeah,
idea?
Councilmember
let me
Schwartz
address
has some
just
input.
one thing. To build the road, they've got to put the drainage in first. And it's just a
Okay.
part of the normal construction. So we don't want to specify how they're going to build it. Once the city approves the plans, any pipe work or any ditches will be dug before they actually put the road in, so.
So they
the-
do
the
have to do the
drainage will-
drainage first?
Yeah, it will go in
Okay, well, that was
first.
my question.
Yeah.
So you do have to do the drainage first?
Yeah, I mean, the pipes will have to go in the ground before the road's built.
Okay, and then the city will come out and approve that and say, yes, that takes care of the drainage?
Correct.
Okay, well, that was what I was trying to get at, because that needs to be addressed first.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Councilmember Thomas.
Last week, we learned that the portable bills went up, and the neighbors saw significant flooding after the portable buildings went up. And then we learned that the city approved a drainage plan for those portable buildings. My question is, is that going to be readdressed? I'm asking who can answer the question.
Yes, that will be addressed. That's actually part of the plan review process, is to make sure that that additional flow that has been concentrated, as you saw in the photos, should be now handled by underground infrastructure.
So the flooding that they saw increase after the portable buildings went up, they should see significant reduction of that flooding, because there's going to be, what'd you say?
Storm inlets, or storm drains.
Storm drains
inlets,
put
yeah.
in. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the initial plans I saw had about approximately a 50% reduction, and we discussed in that meeting that there needed to be more infrastructure, whether it was additional inlets or a swale or anything we can do to keep the water from traveling to the south.
So should they be put in, and the amount of water doesn't decrease, the flooding that's in these backyards don't decrease to their normal levels pre-portable days, what is the redress? Can they come back to the city and say, look, the plans that you put in, they're not working? What is the?
They can certainly come and discuss that.
So is it a civil matter at that point? So in other words, we need to get it right now? We need to get it right.
Part of my job is to respond to citizen requests for assistance, so I can facilitate a conversation between property owners. If the property owner that is causing the issue would like to move forward with trying to fix the issue, I can facilitate that and review any plans that they come up with. But I have no standing I don't have a legal standing to go
So in other
and tell
words,
someone
we need
do
to get it
something.
right.
I'm sorry?
Now. We need to get it right now, so that we
Correct.
don't have to
And
do this dance.
as I stated previously, the initial numbers that I saw, the initial calculations that I saw had a 50% reduction in the total amount of water coming from that entire property. And at that point, we decided that, no, there needed to be more infrastructure in place so that that number was actually, you're never going to be able to reduce it to absolute zero, but to get it as minimized as possible.
So more than 50%.
Ideally, yes. And I don't see why that would be an issue, but I'm not the one doing the engineering. I'm not performing the calculations.
But you're approving them.
Correct.
Okay.
But I can't confirm what I haven't seen.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're aggressive in making sure that flooding goes away, because pre-portables, they did not have that flooding. So I just want to address that. And I would also like, my other concern has been addressed about the coming in off of Cedar Ridge and then leaving. I think that's a great solution. I applaud y'all for working that out and us not having that issue on the table.
Councilmember Cooks is next, please.
Yes. Let me ask one of the questions on the SUP. We talked about if the plan is not approved, then the the school can go and do like they wish. But I would like to know from the school, if the plan's not approved, what type of neighbor would you be then after hearing the concerns if it's not approved?
My name is Jeremy Jameson. I live at 901 Canterbury Court, Cedar Hill, Texas, 75104. We do have an alternative plan.
And your position with the school, please?
I'm the operating and technology officer with the school.
Thank you.
We do have an alternative plan drawn as a backup plan, but our first intent is to be a good neighbor. Our kids come from these neighborhoods. We have no desire to be anything but good neighbors. So even with an alternative plan, we will mitigate drainage issues as well as traffic issues.
Okay. You mentioned as being a good neighbor. I know I suggested at least once that you meet with the residents in that neighborhood. Was that able to be done outside of this council meeting?
Yes, sir. We have spoken with a few of the neighbors. Now, initially on moving in, we did invite all the neighbors to meet at the school for a tour and discussion.
No, before this.
After
our last meeting.
That was prior to the meeting. And after your meeting, we have reached out to several neighbors. We've met with 3 neighbors since then, out of 15 invitations. Yes, sir.
So when you're reaching out, you just called them or sent them a letter?
We called, and we actually went and knocked on several doors as well.
Okay. All right, thank you. The other thing was, if this is not right, it's the chance that the flooding exists again, and it's too late then to having to replace the homeowners' items that they lost. And so that's why I'm really concerned if we still have 20 people opposing this, even after they heard the plan. And if we're not able to address their concerns, I still have a strong concern with that as well.
I understand.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember LeBlanc.
Ms. Chastity, can you pull the one back up where the floodplains were? Thank you. Mr. Engineer, when you're going to do all these drainage and think, where are they going to go? I see where it's affecting some homes down at the bottom, but are you going to put them in a place where they're going to affect some, I mean, where are you going to put them? Where's this water going to drain to into the creek?
Right now, the water comes from up in this area, drains down the back, and then through here.
All right.
Our intention is to try to get that water to drain to the creek over here and get into the creek where it won't get into anybody's backyard. So we're going to try to divert the water into the creek. To get it. More than likely, once we get done, this will be better than it was before. The one thing we can't control is whatever water backs up the creek when the creek floods from just the creek coming out of its banks or whatever. We can't really control that, but we can control the amount of runoff that comes from our side onto the neighbors' properties.
All right, so basically what you're saying is you're going to divert the water from where it's going now so it goes into the creek. But with that amount of water going into the creek, will it affect some other homes that we can't see on or maybe
I don't believe so. I mean, the water goes into the creek here and gets into the creek there versus here to here. I mean, it's...
Okay, so is the gray the creek? So the dark brown is the creek with the lines? Where's the creek?
The
eastern border.
The creek is the flood right here down there.
And so the gray is the 1,000 year, and the blue is the 500.
100 and 500, yes.
100 and 500, okay. And city engineer, do you think with this water being diverted to the creek, will that have any impact on these homes to the south along the creek? Will it just change the dynamics of where the floodplains are now?
No, it will not modify the floodplain.
It won't?
No, sir.
They've already changed the dynamics of the floodplain, that blue part, big part.
We need you to come to, we need you to have on the mic, please, Mr. Adams.
That blue part right there used to extend all the way over to Danielville. That's been modified. They built this up to build a church. They weren't supposed to do it. They built that 3-foot. Danielville didn't used to run through there. When they built Danielville through, they brought the land up. They weren't supposed. They could have built a church right where my house sits, ground level. And this right here has been elevated because a man come in and said he wanted to do the church a favor. That's when the church owned it for a ballpark, and I stopped them doing that. They changed the lay of the land there. They kind of pushed it over in this feller's yard. But even across the street over there, that used to be in a floodplain. I don't know who's doing what here and who's saying what it is, but it used to be all the way across. This man here should have built the homes, but nevertheless, we didn't know that it was being done, okay? But no, that blue is that wide all the way across, but not now because they keep continuously building it up. And they also built up their parking lot behind there, so, and put pecan trees so they wouldn't get any erosion. It just keeps getting worse, 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 and worse. I took pictures today on my iPad about the water that ran off on the big rain. It's pushing all that underpinning away. They came in where it was eroded on their little gravel road for the rear exit. You got to have rear exit as well as the front. Somebody didn't design that, didn't know it because they came in after the fact, after the point. So somebody's not doing what they know to do, or they don't know to do it, period. And it's just guesswork. It's all guesswork.
Okay, Ms. Jameson, additional comments?
Yes, my question again is to the attorney, because we're hearing it should cut it down 50%, it ought to make it better, all these sort of iffy kind of statements. And if this is not adequately addressed and there is more flooding, are we not liable as a city because we approved a plan that didn't take care of the flooding issue? And if we're not liable, then what can we do to ensure that it stops the flooding?
You're not liable because you would have immunity from that sort of suit. What you do to make sure that it stops the flooding, it would be to allow the city engineers to approve the plan, and as it states in the condition number 5, they have to approve the plan. It has to be designed and submitted to the city engineer for approval. And that is the review that the city would have to make sure that it doesn't increase the flooding and that it actually mitigates it.
So if they approve the plan and it doesn't address it adequately,
Then it becomes a civil issue between the property owners.
well, I think there's probably a question about that, because
It is a civil issue between property owners, but as I stated previously in response to Councilman Thomas's question, part of my job is to facilitate those conversations and, if at all possible, de-escalate. If we needed to have the conversation with Village Tech, say, hey, your plans aren't working. We've got to do something better. Now, I have no standing to force Village Tech to do anything about that, but I have a feeling that they would be more than happy to not be draining onto their neighbor's property.
now, we don't have, there's nothing we can do to force them to address it if it didn't stop the flooding.
No. I mean, your question was whether the city would be liable. No, the city would not be liable in that circumstance.
Well, that's probably for debate, but in the courtroom. But the issue is, what do we have? What teeth do we have in it if this doesn't work?
Well, I think he has the teeth, because you said that.
He said he doesn't.
He has to approve the plan.
Right, but he said if it doesn't work, there's nothing to do.
But if he doesn't approve the plan, then they have to keep coming back to him to something that he can approve. correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and
That's
so,
what I'm saying, so he has the teeth.
so if it doesn't work though, what? What then?
Then I have the discussion with Village Tech about modifying
you-
their plans to
Okay,
improve
I just want to
the
make sure there's some
drainage.
teeth in it because these people are tired of being flooded. And I don't blame you. I've been flooded. I don't blame you. And so we got to stop it. And that's all. I just wanted to know if there was, to make sure we had some teeth in it.
Mr. Bunner,
Yes, sir.
this entire council and all these concerns and all these questions are relying on your competency. We are trusting you 100% to make sure that the plans submitted by the school's engineer are 100% to the very, very best of their ability to mitigate these problems.
Yes, sir.
We have to rely on you. I'm just going to ask a tough question. Do you think you need any help to make sure that what they're going to be submitting is going to be the very, very best effort that they can put forth?
No, sir.
You can do it.
My background is in stormwater engineering.
Then we place the mantle of responsibility on your shoulders
Agreed.
to make sure, as Councilmember Jameson is saying, we are so concerned for our citizenry that these plans that are put forth by their engineers are going to do the job. And that your assurance, when you put your stamp on it, it is going to do the job.
It is actually not my engineer stamp that goes on the plans,
Well,
just to
I'm
clarify.
talking about your assent to these plans, not the physical stamp, but we're talking about your review.
The approval for construction.
Your
Yes, sir.
approval, review and approval of these plans is going to give us the assurance that the very best thing has been done well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Councilmember Schwartz, did you have anything else to say?
I really don't know quite where to start because my background started out in drainage engineering with the City of Dallas. And then I was Public Works Director for 26 years in Duncanville. So I have a little bit of experience in what we're talking about. I think the consultant engineer has an awesome responsibility. We've got the city requirements on how to design this thing. We're putting a parking lot in. I'm assuming that we're putting some retention in, which is going to hold back water and release it slower. This is going into the question about going in the creek downstream. Will that cause any flooding? If you don't put it in, if you control the speed of the water going into the creek, that mediates that problem. The same amount of water is going to end up in the creek. It's just how fast it gets there. If you slow the water down, then you don't have a problem. These drainage issues can all be fixed. We have 3 professional engineers on our staff, as well as the design engineer and his team. I think we've got to put a little confidence in the consultant and our reviewers to adequately review these plans. And I mean, I understand the questions that have been asked, and this, I mean, it's a problem when you see water rising. Those of you who have seen it, I used to go out and watch it every time it rained here in Duncanville. I know where the problem areas are. I've seen Bennell Branch come out of the banks. A lot happened when Cedar Hill did their retention pond up there that slowed the water down, held it back, and you haven't flooded since that's been done. We'll be talking about doing some of that same stuff on this church property. So it can be mediated. Now, we all know it once rained 40 days and 40 nights. There is always a rain that can flood somebody. And but when you have one of those, it's going on all over. the bottom line is, I think we ought to trust our staff to review these plans and put out a good product, comma. On the driveway, I want to talk about that too. The way I guess the way the background is written here, we're having a right turn only in. I specifically asked for a right turn out during the periods of time that we're not using it for queuing. So I want a right in on Cedar Hill and a right turn out on Cedar Hill, so people aren't backing up to make a left turn coming out. And that's my comments.
Where would that be again now?
Where the driveway, the only driveway, the new driveway coming out on Cedar Hill Road.
Right.
Right turn in, right turn out. You can't come out of there and make a left turn.
That can be,
It can,
that can be stipulated with some signs and some whatever has to be done on that?
it's just geometry. It's just the way you lay it out.
Mr. Hugman, do you want to address that, or Mr. Ramey, either one?
Mayor and Council, that is already one of the conditions in the that were added. Wait for my there to load. Condition number 6: a hooded right turn or appropriate traffic control measures shall be installed at the drive from Cedar Hill Road to ensure a right turn ingress only during pickup and drop-off times. So, but it would be a right in, right out at other times. That is a condition already established.
May I ask a clarifying question real quick, Mr. Schwartz? So, again, the way 6 is that the intent during pickup times is right turn in exclusively, no exit. So you are saying that no matter when, say, well, assuming not pickup and drop-off times when it's only in, but you're saying that you want it to only be when it's just a middle of the day, they can only make an out. So there is never, you're saying that there's never an opportunity, regardless of time of day, where we want people to be able to take a left. Is that what I'm understanding?
I want to try to control the traffic in that curve and.
Okay. So that would, the way I interpret 6, that would be an amendment to 6 that says right turn in, right turn out on the, on non-pickup times.
Yes.
So do we have to make somehow or another, in this point, we're still in discussion, in order to amend condition 6, what do we need to do?
You need to make that amendment.
Your mic, please.
You need to make that amendment in your motion.
Do we make that a motion now, or do we make it at the point where we come to the approval?
You can do it all in one motion.
Make it all in one motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would also point out the discussion in regards to number 8, there being 3 portables versus 2.
Right.
That's another amendment that should a council member make a motion to approve, that also be added.
Okay. Councilmember Cooks?
Yeah, my last comment is that with all of the engineering studies, with all the engineering comments, we've not been able to convince the residents who live in that community. That's one of the reasons I kept requesting that the residents and the school meet as one. So I'm torn. Who do I err on the side of? Do I err on the side of the engineer and hopes that everything he talked about is going to work just like you planned? Or do I go with the side of the residents 20 residents who've signed to say no on this? My thoughts would be is to allow the school to use their plan B, which is not approving the SUP, then moving forward with working with the neighbors to make that step again as we notify that the water is not flooding, things have been taken care of, and then the school go back to work with the residents again and then put in their driveway after they've talked with the residents. So I'm gonna have to if there's any error, I'm gonna have to still side with the 20 people that have signed with the the petition to ask for this not to be done.
Councilmember Cook, staff asked me to point out that the opposition that was filed was in regards to the right turn on to Cedar, what's the road name? Cedar Hill.
Cedar Hill, okay.
Not in relation to the drainage.
Nothing to drainage, okay. All right, thank you. My comment still stands, however, thank you for sharing that.
Councilmember Cooks, and I would just like to clarify, but Chastity, what you had indicated was if the SUP is denied and the school has indicated they have worked on a Plan B, Plan B would just mean that it was not using the lot, the one parcel of property that is zoned general retail that requires the SUP.
Which one is that?
It's the upper portion.
It is the upper portion here.
So if the SUP is denied and the school uses only the property then that is zoned residential, which does not require the SUP.
Correct.
Then they would be able to construct the parking lot and the driveway without coming back to council.
Correct.
So I just wanted to make sure.
That's a true statement, and that's why I asked the question, if not approved, how neighborly will they still be? That's why I asked the question of the school, if the SUP is not approved, how neighborly will they still be after hearing the concerns of the neighborhood?
Also to point out that per the zoning, as I provided in the staff report, the property that is zoned general retail could be developed with general retail uses as well.
Okay. If there are no further comments, I don't see any. Oh, yes.
My name is Mary O'Brien. I live at 9720 Shadydale Lane. I'm actually the architect of record on this project. And yes, we do have an alternative plan queued up if needed to use it. I will say that the con of using that plan is there's less queuing that we can get off-site. But at the same time, we still can use the same access point on Cedar Hill Road, but you're actually potentially having more cars back up onto Cedar Hill Road. So there is a benefit of using, I'm going to, for lack of a better term, call this Plan A, because we do get so many cars, and there is a substantial number of cars coming off Cedar Hill Road. And then in regards to the drainage, we have done very extensive drainage studies. We even, working with RLK Engineering, we actually hired an outside party to do a flow study of the creek as required by the city engineers. So that was something that we did a very extensive, very expensive study as well on. So we are trying to do everything in our due diligence. I will say that I feel, speaking on behalf of Village Tech, as their advocate, I feel like they have reached out in their best effort to get in contact with the neighbors. They have called them. I do know that some of the photos that were presented to you were not, that access onto that property was not granted by Village Tech. And speaking as an architect, school security is always in the forefront of in my mind, and just having people come onto the property is a very big issue. So that's something to think about as well. And the idea of being neighborly, there's another side to that story. So,
in perspective, the conditions that have been inserted into this SUP as a result of citizens' input has made the plan much, much stronger than it ever was in the first place. And I think that's evidenced by our councils listening to the citizenry and understanding, and having the engineers present when all this was done has made it extremely important to us that this be done right. And without those conditions, we as a city can't guarantee our citizenry that it is going to be done right. So the SUP as it stands now really stands in favor of the citizens making things to the very, very best of our ability to make things right as this goes on forward. Are there any further comments? Mr. Barnard.
What I would like to say to Village Tech is if the pictures hadn't been taken, then you wouldn't have been aware of any of this. I thought I was helping, but evidently they don't appreciate the fact that we took the pictures. Like I said, I have nothing against the school, and I'm all for it going in as long as it's done proper. How many of y'all have ever had your house flooded? You have. What do you think happens when a house floods? You have any idea? Usually all your appliances are thrown away, your walls are cut out, a lot of your clothes, your personal gear, everything is gone. It happens. I know, I've been there. For the last 10 years, I've probably been to 40 or 50 disaster areas. Some of them reflooded. And so we're just trying to protect our property. And I know that Village Tech is trying to protect their interests and their property. But to say that somebody came on their property and took pictures, we thought we were trying to help. That's all. That's all I have.
And as I said, those pictures gave us as a council the catalyst to cause changes to be made to this SUP, regardless of how those pictures were obtained to our council. I don't believe has made any change in terms of our opinion of what needs to be done. We did not look at it. We only looked at those pictures as saying this is evidence that something needs to change. It was not of our concern in terms of the acquisition of those images. So I appreciate that input as well from both sides. Any further comments? I believe your name was Rakestraw, if I recall.
Yes, it is. Thank you, City Council. My name is John Rakestraw, and I live at 502 Villa Creek Drive. And I want to thank you all for giving the attention to this big matter that you have. And I know it's a tough decision, and a lot of the water problems are genuine and they're real. And it's a huge engineering nightmare, really. I've seen it, and we talked about that before. I wanted to leave you with one last thought, because I've heard some discussion on the exiting of the students and the traffic going on to Cedar Hill Road. And I still believe that it should be one way through the school out onto Daniel full time. Thank you very much.
Any response to that, Ms. Allen?
Yes, just to clarify, the condition as amended by, recommended to be amended by Councilman Schwartz, that it would be an entrance only during pickup and drop-off, and a right in, right out only on non-drop-off times. The concern from the school with allowing vehicles to pass through through behind the portable buildings during non-pickup and drop-off times is there's no staff out there to monitor traffic behind the portable buildings on non-pickup and drop-off time, which is why they only wanted the ingress during pickup and drop-off so it can be monitored, and then the right in, right out on non-drop-off pickup times. So that's why they didn't want to just only require this to be the only path 100% of the day, because it will only be manned as far as staff being present to make sure there's no children crossing and things like that during pickup and drop-off time, also from a security standpoint of people coming through the campus throughout the day. So that's why they recommended that this be ingress, this be the path, pickup and drop-off, and then as Councilman Schwartz stated, on non-pickup and drop-off times to allow for teachers or visitors to be able to make a right out onto Cedar Hill Road from this parking lot on non-pickup drop-off times.
Okay. Councilmember Thomas.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move to approve the current SUP with two amendments. One is to include the third portable, and the next one is to allow only right turns in and out of the Cedar Ridge, Cedar Hill ingress, egress. They can only turn right in their non-pickup. They can only turn right out on non-pickup times. They can only turn right in on pickup times, and they can't come out. right in during drop-off times.
So just to clarify, right in,
Mike, please.
Sorry about that. I always speak very loudly, I'm told. So just to clarify, your motion is for right in during pickup and drop-off, and to allow right off during non-pickup and drop-off times. Correct?
Say that first part again?
To allow right in during pickup and drop-off times.
Right in, but no right out.
No right out.
Yes.
Correct. And to allow right out during non-pickup and drop-off times.
I second the motion.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Please vote. We have a supermajority. The SUP is passed. Thank you. Moving on to item 5B. Consider a resolution to accept and approve the Duncanville Sign Control Board grant of a 201 square foot area variance and a 2 vertical dimension variances, to wit 2 feet 0 inches for the north elevation sign and a 5 foot 2 inch vertical dimension variance for the west elevation sign collectively as exhibited in Exhibit A for Hampton Inn and Suites located at 202 East Interstate 20, Duncanville, Texas, which is attached here too and incorporated herein.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Contreras.
Council. This issue was brought to the Sign Control Board on behalf of Hampton Inn and Suites by the National Sales Director of Chandler Signs, who are the people that designed and are going to install these signs, excuse me, for the property. So the meeting was held on November the 8th. Mr. Wilson showed up and explained why he thought he had a greater need for the signage, additional signage because of the height of the building and the overall size of the faces of the building and highway visibility. So the board heard the cases for that argument, which, as we stated earlier, was a grant for, there's actually 2 variances being asked for. One is the surface area, which is 201 square feet over and above what's allowed. And that is 2 signs that combined to create that overage. So there's a sign on the north face of the building, which I believe in the handouts that you have that. This is the north face facing I-20, and then you also have this west facing sign there. So those are the 2 signs that combined get us over the 201 square, or get us to the 201 square feet. The other variance is to grant a vertical dimension variance of 2 feet on the north wall and 5 feet 2 on the west wall. That's simply because in the ordinance, we have a rule that says your sign can't be taller than 4 feet. So when we look at this particular sign right here, the way you determine the sign square footage is you take a rectangular dimension around the highest and lowest points of that sign. So you can see the H is quite a bit higher than the rest of those letters, and the I dips down quite a bit lower. But you still have to draw that rectangle, so that creates a lot more square footage of sign than really exists, but that's the way it's formulated. So that's what got us there. The Sign Control Board approved the variance request at that meeting. It was a unanimous decision to approve. And just to show you again, and Mr. Schwartz brought this up a number of years ago, and I find it to be very helpful in explaining to you not just the square footages, but the actual percentages. On the wall sign area, it's 201 square feet, and I'll have to get back to you on that percentage. I didn't know that was not on the slide. But on the wall sign height, you see that the first sign on the north side is approximately 50% over what we allow. The second sign is 129%. So it gives you some perspective about how much of a request they're asking for. Now, having said that, I want to remind that this is pretty accurate artist rendering, and you can see by the height of the building the building's kind of skewed to the northeast. So this sign will serve eastbound traffic on I-20. They don't need a sign on the east side of the building. This will work perfectly for them. This sign right here is for westbound traffic. If you go much smaller than this, I'd have to agree, and the board agreed, that the sign starts to disappear, and it's really not very legible. This is just a site plan that shows you approximately where the D and the A are, where those two signs would be located on the building and relative to I-20. The one thing I want to mention is that while the board's already approved this, I think it's imperative that staff go to the sign control board and ask them for consideration to follow the lead that we took some 10, 12 years ago when we got Costco. We realized then that big box stores, 98,000 square feet plus, and lots of wall space would need a lot of variances in order to get the amount of signage that would be suitable for that type of a building. And as you can see today, as a result of that ordinance change, Costco has a sign that's done in good taste, but it's much larger than would be allowed anywhere else. We additionally, further back than that, created an ordinance for businesses that were a certain distance away from the main street on which they were addressed. And that was simply because when you're that far back in a shopping center, following the rules would make your signs virtually invisible. So that ordinance allows for a percentage increase for a distance of 100, 150, up to 200 feet away from the main street, and you get additional signage for that. I think that going forward, what we need to do is look at some other cities that experience a lot more higher buildings like this, and develop some type of a formula so that they don't have to come and get variances for these signs, because I would expect that we'd see more of these along I-20 in the next 10 or 20 years, and possibly on 67 as well. So that's something that I'm going to talk to the board about. We'll do the groundwork of checking with the other cities to see what they do to accommodate that. And then in the future, possibly we can get to good, attractive signage without having to come before the board, the sign control board. So with that, any questions?
Yeah.
Mayor, move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. All in favor, please vote. Thank you. The motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5C, consider a resolution approving a 12-month agreement between the City of Duncanville and the Duncanville Chamber of Commerce, awarding a hotel occupancy tax grant to the Duncanville Chamber of Commerce located at 300 East Wheatland in the amount of $17,760 for fiscal years 18-19 to serve as the official Duncanville Visitor Center.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. As the mayor just stated, the Chamber of Commerce has requested a hotel occupancy tax grant in the amount of $17,760 to serve as the official visitor center for the 12-month period. This is an additional $852 requested to assist in increased costs for operating the visitor center in the building in terms of such things as cleaning, lawn maintenance, and utilities. In terms of some background information, in FY 17-18, the City Council did approve and did pay the Chamber of Commerce $16,908 to serve in the capacity of the official visitor center for the community. During the year, the Duncanville Chamber of Commerce assisted numerous visitors, 111 walk-in visitors, visitors on the phone, 111 walk-in visitors, as well as provided 13 visitor packets to outside individuals. Oh, I apologize. 30. The Chamber of Commerce hosts, as you all know, a walk-in visitor center area there at the front. It is available 24 hours a day, so that way if we have visitors come in at 10 o'clock at night, maybe for a sporting event or something of that nature, or they come in first thing in the morning, maybe 6:30 in the morning on a Saturday, that information is available to them. The kiosk in the visitor center area does display marketing materials for the local hotels and restaurants. as well as any special activities or events taking place in the community. In addition, more benefits for the visitor center. They also, as I stated earlier, provide welcome bags to out-of-town visitors upon request, and the Chamber of Commerce also coordinates activities and sites for groups coming into Duncanville. This was something that was very important when I first came on board. Prior to me coming on board, it was just simply a resolution that was passed by the City Council in terms of what the contribution or benefit to the Chamber of Commerce would be. And that was something that the Chamber and the City worked very closely on, is to coming to terms with an agreement to ensure that the funds were being properly used on with the Chamber of Commerce and being able to report those numbers back to the City Council. So on a monthly basis, the Chamber of Commerce is responsible for reporting the number of assisted walk-in out-of-town visitors during normal business hours, the number of phone calls where out-of-town visitors were provided assistance, the name of out-of-town groups and number of visitor packets and when distributed, and a list of where the visitors are from when possible in order to identify target markets for future marketing efforts. Further requirements also include a copy of the Chamber of Commerce balance statement showing how the Visitor Center funds are being used in accordance with the City and the Chamber of Commerce agreement and state law. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Martin has been able to make it this evening, so he's available as well.
Ms. Jameson.
My understanding was that this was based on a percentage, and the percentage of the area that was for visitors.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. If you'd look in your staff report and your backup information, this accounts essentially for approximately 50% of the area in the front where the visitor center essentially is located. It does also account for only 2% of the salaries for the assistant as well as the president, and those are both expenses that are in line with state law.
And where is that?
That's in your packet. There's an entire budget there.
That's the spreadsheet. I'm calling it the Visitor Center Information Cost and Annual Amounts is what you're referring to.
Yes, Mayor.
2%, 2.125% of the salaries that
Yes,
you're talking to.
Did you find it? Okay. 50% and then 2%. Okay, so the, okay.
Okay. Councilmember Cooks?
Yeah, I do have, of course, love supporting our local chamber for sure, so this is no indication of not supporting our chamber, so I'll start with that. But I do have a question about the increase of $800. You mentioned that the increase was based upon the mowing of the lawn, custodial, all those other things. Is that, but I don't see an increase also, but I saw a decrease in what we did year over year.
Mr. Martin is here to, that was the request that was submitted. Mr. Martin is here to answer that question.
Okay. Good that you can make it, Steve. Hope you're feeling better.
Sorry I couldn't make the briefing. I'd much rather been here than where I was. Some of the costs that you see did go down a little bit last year, but what I gave was basic costs for the 17-18 year, and the increase that we have here is also coming in for the 19. We see that there's going to be, we know there's an increase. I've had a cleaning company that's done our cleaning, office cleaning for ever since I don't know, I can't remember how far back they went, but it was only like $52 a week, which was unheard of. And the new company, they have finally quit and gone from there, and the new company is considerably higher, but we're still splitting minimal of that. Nothing that we have percentage-wise is, you're not ever paying over more. Some things it's 50%, other things like salary, you know, we're not going to throw salaries in there, but we do have time. We do take up time. We do the packets and phone calls and information, things such as that, so.
Yeah, I just, the amount that you're talking, and I know it's $800, but $800 is $800. With the 1,750 square footage of the visitor center, what does that equate to? We're actually being charged for that visitor center square footage. What is the square footage amount that we're paying for that front
I don't know
office?
that we've ever broke that down, and we could figure it out, but the bottom line is I've heard people say that the visitor center is just the foyer. Well, it's not just the foyer. That's 24/7. But people come in to the visitor center, we've got more items and all and information inside. Plus, we're open, you know, to answer calls, questions. Everybody comes in, they're coming into town, they want to use the restroom, we provide them bottled waters, things such as that. We just accommodate them there. So the percentage of that we use here that we're figuring, it doesn't include the boardroom, it doesn't include any of the other office space. That's just the restrooms, the kitchen area, the main office area, and then the foyer.
Is it a breakout? Are you any partner that you're partnering with the chamber? Do they receive this very similar breakout of analyzing what what the cost is from the lawn to the building to the salary? Any other partners that is invoiced the same way?
No. The only, outside of the chamber itself, this is the only partnership we have as far as the visitor center.
All right, thank you.
Mr. McBurnett?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve in a second. Mr. LeBlanc did have a question, though.
Steve, you could. That's all right. I just got a question on the packets. Is it feasible to leave some packets out 24/7? So if they do come in, there's a packet, or that wouldn't be?
Yeah, it's possible, but when we say packets, basically, there's two forms of packets when we speak packets. One's a relocation packet. That's when we get a phone call from someone that's looking to relocate to Duncanville. We send them not only the new maps, which are there 24/7, the community profiling maps, which the chamber does, and we distribute them in all the hotels and in the city. We put those in there. We put school district information. We put city information, the fast facts, things such as that. And we send hotels information, things such as that. To put one of those packets inside, people would steal them for the bag.
Yeah, that's what I was.
They would take them for the plastic bags that we have in them. Now, the other packets that we do, when we have, like, we have 3 right now. We have a April, a May, and a June family reunions that's coming to town.
Okay.
And sometimes we'll get requests either from 30 to, in the one in May or June, I'm not sure exactly which one, they're wanting approximately 200 packets for family members and all. But we check these out. We don't just do them for fun. And this particular group has 40 rooms booked at the Hilton Garden Inn.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking is just some material, I mean, maybe not the relocation, but just something out there that tells about, I know it's on the kiosk, but sometimes people like to take stuff, you know, with them.
Well, I mean, everything's there. They can take it. It's just not in a packet in a bag. But everything's there. All the hotel information, restaurant information, city information, Duncanville ISD information, field house information.
Just not in a formal group.
No, not in a formal group, but they're all in individuals.
That's good.
But we have like I say, we have the field house information, ISD, and city fast facts that we have all the time.
Okay.
But if we put them in a bag, the bags would be gone.
That's why I said feasible.
Okay, seeing as there's no further discussion, please vote.
Well, I'd like to make an amendment, friendly amendment to the motion. And that amendment is to approve it based upon using the last year's budget dollars that was already there. If whoever made that motion will do a friendly amendment to that motion. So that's if you will accept a friendly amendment. Okay.
Seeing as there's no second to that motion, okay, we now have a second. So would you please explain that, Mr. Cooks?
I'm saying the amount that we supported the chamber to it last year, which was 17,000. My glasses on. No. Which was
no
16,000.
$16,908.
I'm asking for a friendly amendment for the 16,908 to remain the same for 17, 18, for this year, 18, 19, I guess.
But they've already been granted the 17,760.
We're granted the 16,908. He's asking for 17 now, right?
No.
Well, I'm
They've
asking
already
to-
been granted the 17,760. They're asking for another 800 and some dollars.
Is 800, yes.
This current 17-18, the budget was $16,908. They're asking for an increase of $852, which would equal $17,760. So their
Okay.
request is to increase it to $17,760.
It's about a 5% increase, I believe.
That is correct. Just under it.
Have they received any other hotel motel tax?
In the past, yes, ma'am, they have.
But not this year?
No, ma'am.
Typically, when there's a request for a friendly amendment, the parties who made the motion and seconded have to agree to said amendment.
Would have to what, say again?
Agree to the amendment request. The part, so the council member who made the motion and the second.
Robert's rules is once a motion's on the table, it belongs to the whole body. So it would take unanimous consent in order to have a
But we don't operate strictly by Robert's Rules of Orders either.
I'm sorry?
We don't operate strictly by Robert's Rules of Orders either.
No.
Nothing in city charter that says we operate by Robert's Rules of Orders.
our council rules say that we operate by unless it's altered by our rules. But, you know,
I think she's right. I think you do have to approve. I think you do have to agree to a friendly amendment, the person who made the amendment. That is right.
I'm sorry? So the motion's on the table.
So where in Robert's Rules of Orders is a friendly amendment described?
I'm sorry?
Where in Robert's Rules of Orders is friendly amendment
It's not
literally
described.
described?
It's not
It
described.
is not.
It's a friendly, the friendly aspect of it is a request to the parties who've made the motion, if they are willing to agree to, the party who made the motion and to second, if they are willing to agree to amend their motion to include the amendment requested.
But in Robert's rules, there is no friendly amendment, and once a motion has been made and seconded, that motion becomes part of the whole body owns that motion. And so say I make the motion and it gets seconded, I cannot withdraw my motion. It doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to
Understood.
the whole body.
So what we need to vote on is the alleged friendly amendment that has been made at this point, before we move on to the original motion of what's been proposed to take it as stated. Please vote. Okay, Mr. Cooks, reiterate your motion.
If you'll put that. I make a motion that we will continue, I make an amendment that we continue with the 17-18 City of Duncanville Chamber of Commerce, $16,908 to serve as our official visitor center without any changes.
Meaning that the $862 they're asking for is not part of your approval.
That's correct.
Okay?
Yes, that was the same amount it was last year.
You just asked to keep the, is there any other?
Now he's saying that he's not, does not want the $862 approved.
Right, that's what I'm saying all along. I wanted to keep it where it was for last year, which was 16,000.
Do we all understand what's on the table?
For clarification, if I could ask the city attorney then just to clarify what the vote is on the amendment and what a yes vote is and what a no vote would be on this amendment.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Would ask the city attorney then to, just for the council to clarify then what the vote is, if they're voting on the amendment. There's too many lights, too many mics on, I think is why her mic won't come on. If the city attorney would just clarify for the council what the action is that they're voting on and what a yes vote signifies and what a no vote would signify on this amendment.
The action you're voting on right now is to agree to the friendly amendment that the budget amount of $16,908 be used for this budget year's agreement. A yes vote would mean that you agree to that amendment.
Please vote. Motion is not passed. We are back to the original motion. Please vote. Thank you very much. Motion is passed.
And by the way, Barry, there is a friendly amendment on Robert's Rules of Order. I Googled it.
Okay. On to item number 6. Staff and board reports. Receive the library quarterly report.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Here present the library quarterly report. I'll make it brief. So this year we had several wonderful co-sponsored events with the Friends of the Library, including our Library Veterans Recognition Day on Saturday, September 15th. Had over 100 attendees there. Andy Fancher, who's a local historian who videos the stories of veterans and posts those online, was there to give a presentation. We had several veterans in attendance who told their stories. We also talked about the war effort at home, and we did some programs for the kids talking about rationing and victory gardens. We also had a visitation, the author recognition event from the Friends with their local author, James R. Hannibal. That's his pen name. He's actually was in the military, can't use his real name. So he was here over the summer and did a wonderful presentation for us, talk about his material that he's worked on in his life in the military and his life in Duncanville. We also had the wonderful honor of hosting our very own mayor for the Mayor's Story Time. And we had a wonderful attendance there. We're hoping to replicate that again sometime very soon when the mayor's schedule clears up. So we had a great time and a great feedback on that one as well. Some other great accomplishments. We had a baby sign language story time, which went very well. We're going to replicate that again in the spring with 6 more sessions, so that was a great event that we had. We're expanding some of our community programs in the spring. We're also adding more one-on-one computer help in classes as well. We've also, as far as our work plan, we're in progress with our new integrated library system with Koha and Bellwether Solutions. Currently, that's what handles all our data in the library, the patron data, the book data. So we have a go-live date schedule of May 6th. Right now, we're working with the web interface design and data testing on that one. And some of our year-to-date accomplishments, as you see, we've had about 165,000 visitors. We've loaned out, we've had about 1,599 new borrowers, added about 5,202 new bits of materials, offered, obviously, several classes, had a really good attendance, and have had wonderful number of volunteer hours that have helped us for all of our programs, and we really appreciate all them. That's all I have. I'll entertain any questions. If not, that's all.
Ms. Thomas.
Hi. Thanks for all you do. Great library, great director. Anyway, what is your sense of the people who come and patron the library, of those that are maybe entrepreneurs, software coders, that are using the city's computers to help them with that? Do you see any incubation going on in the library?
We don't see a ton of that. You know, we see some of the younger high school students who are, you can tell they're entertaining those ideas for their future, so they'll utilize what materials we have to offer them. We've looked into, we do have STEM kits that we lend out for the younger kids, and we see a big circulation on those, which indicated a big interest in science and technology. We're looking to try to do some more STEM-related programs to kind of stimulate those folks. We don't tend to see a lot of entrepreneur folks coming in, at least visibly talking to us. It's possible they may be there utilizing our resources, utilizing our online materials and our print resources. Every so often, we might get a question here or there about that. Primarily, when most of our patrons who are coming in, utilizing what we have as far as the technology is those who are lacking that technology at home. So we're bridging that gap for them. So we're bridge gappers, gap bridgers would be for that. So, but it is something we have in our heads as a goal, increasing that level of STEM education, increasing that on a broader sense, trying to really engage our teen patrons who are coming in, and part of that, what we do is through our teen volunteers that we have, engaging them with the library programs and help them proselytize out to their peers that we are a resource center for that, and trying to really work hard to figure out what those proper programs would be that would bring the teens in, engage with them, and kind of help them in those future careers related to that technology and whatnot.
Yeah, I asked that question knowing that you are a leader in the librarians in the state of Texas, and that you are on the cutting edge. And so I was just, trying to gauge what you were thinking about it. Thank you.
And it's always something that's on the forefront for us is engaging with our citizens, engaging with our various age groups, and not trying to intent on what they need is responding to what their needs may be. Unfortunately, I'm going to be able to go starting tomorrow. I'm going on to a directors symposium in San Diego, which is directors from across the country that will be talking about community engagement and programs and how to improve that relationship. So hopefully I can bring back a lot of good information back to our citizens, back to our library in order to expand what we can do and offer to our citizens. So. Anything else?
Quick question. I noticed that you brought in over 5,000 new pieces of material, as they were called. How do you, how's that distributed between multimedia, or is it hard copy?
Well, we budget out different things, and usually part of it is through requests. Part of it, we do analysis on usage, so we look what materials are being used more often and wearing out and how to replace that. Part of it also, right now, we're doing a large weeding program in which we are updating our collection. A lot of our collection has become outdated due to inability to replace them in a timely manner due to budgets or what have you. So a lot of that is what we're also trying to do is to ensure we have the most current information, correct information. We have regulations through ALA that we have to follow as to the age of certain materials, legal materials, medical materials, technology to ensure they're not outdated, they're not dangerous to have around to give inaccurate information. Part of that is that increase. But we're constantly looking at those numbers, looking at what's specifically requested by patrons, but also we're looking at the ebb and flow of all the materials, how that gets checked out, how often it gets checked out, the renewals on that thing, and that advises us as to what new materials we add that. To give you an example, we have some new audiobooks. They're self-contained audiobooks that we use. They're not disc-driven or anything. So these are just you plug them in, you put a battery, and you listen to that, and that's very popular with the teens. So we've increased our budget on buying those bits of audiobooks, and they're very reliable and sturdy. And the nice thing is that you don't have multiple discs that can get lost or anything like that. So we've gauged the reaction. We've seen what they've enjoyed about them, so we've increased the amount we're buying this year for those. And that's kind of how we do it with our collections.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else? Seeing as there's no additional discussion, we are adjourned at 8:53. Thank you.